In the open space, many universe gods were looking at Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng with puzzled expressions. Both of them had passed the third test. However, there was only one white blaze fruit tree for this test. Hence, how could it be split? I don't really care. The white blaze fruits is useless to me. You can have it, Duan Lingfeng said. How can you do this? Jian Wushuang frowned. The white blaze fruit tree was indeed useless to Duan Lingfeng. However, he could give the white blaze fruit tree to the Almighties as they would definitely be willing to pay a high price for it. There's no changing my mind. If you think that you owe me, then I shall treat it as you owing me a big favor. If I were to ask you for help if I am ever in trouble, it's well all right as long as you don't decline, Duan Lingfeng said. Of course, Jian Wushuang nodded his head immediately. If you, Duan Lingfeng, were to be in trouble in the future, as long as it doesn't go against my intentions, I, Jian Wushuang, will definitely do my best or even put my life on the line to help you. I am contented with this. Duan Lingfeng nodded his head, and it was obvious that he was still uninterested in the white blaze fruit. On this matter, Jian Wushuang could not do anything. In fact, even if there was no white blaze fruit tree, considering his friendship with Duan Lingfeng, if Duan Lingfeng were to ask him for help in the future, he would definitely not decline. The third test has ended. Apart from the two people who managed to win the treasure, everyone else can leave. When real god Wu Bei, who was at the highest point of the cave, waved his big hand and space passages which led to outside the cave appeared on the void by the side immediately. There were over 100,000 universe gods on the open space. However, although most of them were a bit dissatisfied, they did not feel any attachment to the cave. Hence, they moved their bodies and left. Jian Wushuang, this is my transmission token. If you come across any trouble in the future, you can use this token to contact me. Of course, if I need your help, I will also use this token to contact you. Duan Lingfeng handed a token over to Jian Wushuang. After receiving it, Jian Wushuang nodded his head and laughed. We will see each other again soon. Duan Lingfeng's body moved and he left the cave via the space passage as well. In no time, everyone had left. Only Jian Wushuang and the God-destroying king remained. Both of them were the ones who had obtained the final treasure. Jian Wushuang, I applaud you. You have obtained 2 out of the 3 white blaze fruit trees. The God-destroying king stared at Jian Wushuang. Didn't you get 1 white blaze fruit tree as well? Jian Wushuang giggled. The God-destroying king also revealed a smile. Indeed, he had also obtained a white blaze fruit tree which was enough for him to report the completion of his task to the person backing him. At that moment, the dim shadow of real god Wu Bei, which was at the highest point of the cave, descended in front of the both of them. It's very difficult to move the white blaze fruit tree. Hence, I must do it one by one for the 3 trees. You shall follow me first. Real god Wu Bei shot a glance toward the God-destroying king. Understood. The God-destroying king followed real god Wu Bei to a special space to move the white blaze fruit tree at once. As for Jian Wushuang, he waited quietly. After some time, both of them came out of the special space. The moment they walked out, the God-destroying king's eyes were filled with delight. It was obvious that the tree had been moved successfully. All right, you can leave already, real god Wu Bei said apathetically. The God-destroying king nodded and left via the space passage. In the huge cave, only 2 people remained. They were Jian Wushuang and the dim shadow of real god Wu Bei. At that moment, the 2 of them were facing one another. Real god Wu Bei's shadow also came together gradually and became a black-clothed, middle-aged man with an evil-looking forehead. His penetrating eyes stared at Jian Wushuang with lightning speed, and he only started to speak after quite a while. Little kid, you are called Jian Wushuang? During the 3 tests previously, he had got to know Jian Wushuang's name from the other universe gods' discussions. You should know that the reason I purposely let the God-destroying king leave first is so that you will be left here alone, right? Real god Wu Bei's voice was a bit cold. I know. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. Because I am the same as you. We are both inverse cultivators. Haha. Glad that you know. Real god Wu Bei laughed evilly. The appearance of my cave has attracted many universe gods. However, I didn't expect an inverse cultivator like you to also be within the universe gods. Moreover, if I didn't see wrongly, you should still be the universe god of the second heaven. But you have a special treasure which allows you to conceal your aura. Jian Wushuang possessed a treasure that had been manufactured by the founder of the lineage of Star, and this treasure allowed him to hide his aura and even his soul power. Hence, normal experts and even normal almighties would not be able to see through him. However, real god Wu Bei was also an inverse cultivator and they were inside his cave. As such, he was able to see through Jian Wushuang clearly. Even though you are only a universe god of the second heaven, your abilities have reached such a level. In addition, you are also ranked third on the universe god ranking list. You are even stronger than I was back then when I was in your shoes. Real god Wu Bei exclaimed in admiration. He had also grown up step by step, starting from being a weak person himself. He had also experienced the stage of being a universe god. Back then, when he was still a universe god of the second heaven, he could only barely make it into the top 20 of the universe god ranking list at his peak. There was no way for him to get stronger as well. After all, there was a lot of restriction with regards to the unique skills. However, Jian Wushuang was in the top 3 and it was obvious that Jian Wushuang was more outstanding than him. Real god Wu Bei, since you know my identity, you should also be certain that my motive for coming to this cave is not only for the white blaze fruit and its tree. Jian Wushuang said seriously. You wish to get real god level inverse cultivation techniques from me, right? Real god Wu Bei looked at Jian Wushuang with interest. That's right. That's my main objective. Jian Wushuang nodded his head earnestly. Back then, when he came to the Wu Bei's cave, helping the lineage of Star to fight for the white blaze fruit and its tree was his secondary objective. The most important thing was still himself. He needed real god-level inverse cultivation techniques. It was only with the necessary cultivation techniques that he could make a breakthrough and become a real god-level inverse cultivator. Without the cultivation techniques, he would stay at the level of universe gods for the rest of his life. Indeed, I know the real godlike inverse cultivation techniques and I can even give them to you. However, there is a condition, real god Wu Bei said. What condition? Jian Wushuang questioned at once. I want you to help me kill someone, a personal enemy of mine. Real god Wu Bei's eyes turned cold. Your personal enemy? Jian Wushuang's expression changed. Who is your personal enemy and how strong is he? He is the Demon Heart Kingdom's monarch, an almighty who rules many holy kingdoms. Real god Wu Bei said in a low voice. He and I have a huge score to settle. When I was alive, there were numerous times that I wanted to kill him. However, I couldn't do it as his abilities were slightly stronger than mine. Moreover, his background is powerful. Until the day I die, I still haven't managed to find any opportunities. An almighty? Jian Wushuang was shocked. Real god Wu Bei, even when you are at your peak, you are still unable to kill the Demon Heart Kingdom's monarch. Yet, you want me, a universe god, to kill him. Why are you anxious? I'm not asking you to kill him now but later on when you enhance your power and have the capability to. Real god Wu Bei stole a glance at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang let out a breath of relief and immediately replied solemnly, Real god Wu Bei, I can promise you that I will figure out a way to kill Demon Heart Kingdom Monarch on your behalf as soon as I have the ability to. If I were to not reach that level ever, you couldn't blame me. Don't worry. If you were to never reach that kind of level or if you passed away, I naturally couldn't pin the blame on you. Plus, at your current level, you are really far off that level. Forget about the other factors. It is still unknown whether you can become real god successfully. After all, you have one last inverse cultivation test to go through. Real god Wu Bei sighed. The last inverse cultivation test is the toughest test as an inverse cultivator. Although you are quite powerful, the possibility of you passing the test is still not high. Jian Wushuang's pupils contracted as he heard that remark. Real god Wu Bei, you're an inverse cultivator at the stage of real god. In other words, it meant that you passed through all 3 inverse cultivation tests. Can you tell me what the last inverse cultivation test about? Jian Wushuang asked. Inverse cultivation test, the toughest test for an inverse cultivator. The previous 2 inverse cultivation tests that Jian Wushuang had been through had brought him to the brink of death. Naturally, for the third inverse cultivation test, the toughest test, Jian Wushuang was worried himself. I can't tell what the third inverse cultivation test is exactly. But the moment I expose the inverse cultivation test, it will become entirely different, Real God Wu Bei explained. However, I can tell you that when it comes to my third inverse cultivation test, everything that I went through still strikes fear in me now. Plus, because of the inverse cultivation test, it caused a drastic change in my temperament. Hence, the people in eternal chaotic world treat me as a madman. Jian Wushuang's eyebrows were tightly knitted. The third inverse cultivation test had made Real God Wu Bei so terrified and his temperament underwent a drastic change? Just how scary was the test? Jian Wushuang muttered. Real God Wu Bei didn't explain much but extended his hand and took out a gray stone bead. Ha! Jian Wushuang looked and his gaze instantly fixed onto the gray stone bead. He wasn't unfamiliar with the gray stone bead. When he had received the heavenly creation skill previously, it was contained in the gray stone bead. Jian Wushuang had yet to find out what material the stone bead was made out of. The inverse cultivation skill of Real God level, also the sixth step of inverse cultivation, is stored in the stone bead. Real God Wu Bei smiled and passed the gray stone bead to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang took the gray stone bead and swept his soul power over it. He was delighted. The sixth step of cultivation strength. Jian Wushuang's eyes were twinkling with joy. I only have the sixth step of cultivation strength. I cultivated to the extreme limit of a real god with this skill when I was live. However, as I couldn't get my hands on the seventh step of cultivation strength, which is the one that equals the skill of an almighty, I have trapped it there. I didn't even break through when I died. Real God Wu Bei sighed. Even Real God Wu Bei couldn't find the seventh step of cultivation strength? Could it be that the seventh step of cultivation strength never existed? Jian Wushuang frowned. That's not it. I know who carries the seventh step of cultivation strength, but that person, he's too aloof. Forget about me, many almighties who are much stronger than I am aren't even qualified to see him. I naturally don't stand a chance. I don't even have the chance to get in touch with him. How can I ask him to pass me that skill? Real God Wu Bei smiled bitterly. Is that so? Jian Wushuang nodded in silence. Jian Wushuang, if you were to reach the level I was at before I died one day, you could ask any almighty who is stronger. Any almighty who is strong will know who has the seventh step of cultivation strength. Real God Wu Bei asked. I understand. Jian Wushuang understood. Then, Real God Wu Bei flipped his palm and two dark, mysterious rings appeared in his hand. Senior Wu Bei, what's this? Jian Wushuang looked at the two rings suspiciously. These two rings contain a white blaze fruit tree each. I gave God-destroying King one just now for him to leave first. Hence, I did some tricks, Real God Wu Bei said. A white blaze fruit trees in these two rings? How is it possible? Jian Wushuang was amazed. He could tell that the black rings should be Qian Kuan rings. Although there was storage space in a Qian Kuan ring, it was used to keep various kinds of treasures. However, treasures were treasures, they were dead objects. But white ablaze fruit tree was a true living thing. Possessed life force. In eternal chaotic world, whatever life force, such as human cultivators, exotic beasts, they were alive, how could they be kept in Qian Kuan ring? Even the natural treasures had to be plucked and cut off from their life force before storing them in Qian Kuan ring. But then, the two Qian Kuan ring. Why? You find it unbelievable, right? Real God Wu Bei looked at him with a smile. When I first received these few rings, I was astonished too. However, such a Qian Kuan ring existed and it was made by a superior personally, back when the almighties were fighting over the white blaze fruit tree and had an insane fight. The reason they couldn't call the match was that the procedure was very complicated to maintain the white blaze fruit tree's life force when they wanted to transplant it. But it was different for me. I took the entire plot of land that cultivated the sapling of white blaze fruit into the ring, while the almighties could only watch me. No wonder Real God Wu Bei, you can take away the sapling of white blaze fruit so openly before the almighties. This is why, huh? Jian Wushuang complimented and then asked. You said that these few rings were made by a superior. Would the superior be the one that helped you nurture the other two white blaze fruit trees? Yes, it's him. Actually, not only the ring and the nurturing of White Blaze Fruit Tree, even the restriction in my cave is set up by him. Because of the existence of the restriction, the Almighty's outside can't enter. Real God Wu Bei smiled. Even the restriction is set up by the superior? Who exactly is this superior? Jian Wushuang asked curiously. I don't know his exact identity, nor do I know his actual power. I only know that he is very good at making weapons, formation, and many realm techniques. Even many almighties who specialized in weapon making and formation couldn't be compared to him favorably. He is definitely one of the most mysterious people I've seen all my life. Real God Wu Bei said. Jian Wushuang was stunned when he heard it. He was exceptionally talented in manufacturing weapons and using spells of many realms. Moreover, he was also very mysterious. This caused Jian Wushuang to think of his own master, Xianxia, instantly. Similarly, his master's background was extremely mysterious. Moreover, his master was also very proficient in manufacturing weapons, using spells, as well as in many other areas. He was very similar to the great person Real God Wu Bei mentioned. Could it be master? Jian Wushuang frowned. However, he was unable to confirm it. It might just be a coincidence. However, it might also be him. If the great person who Real God Wu Bei had mentioned were really his master Xianxia, then he would indeed be extremely mysterious. No matter what, I have no way of finding out if that person is my master. Jian Wushuang shook his head and stopped thinking about it. I have given you all the things that you wanted. Remember our agreement. When you have the ability, please help me to kill the Demon Heart Kingdom's monarch. Now, please go. Real God Wu Bei said. Jian Wushuang's eyes squinted and he glanced at Real God Wu Bei deeply. After that, he gave a bow and entered the space passage which led to the outside world. With Jian Wushuang leaving, only Real God Wu Bei was left in the big cave. As Real God Wu Bei stood in his position, he raised his eyes and looked up at the heavens. Ha ha! All of a sudden, an insane laugh could be heard from Real God Wu Bei, and it shook the universe. Old bastard, I have done what you wanted me to do. Hence, I, Wu Bei, no longer owe you anything. Ha ha! A mad laugh resounded within the whole cave, and the enormous cave also started to shake with laughter. At the next moment, the whole cave started to collapse. As for Real God Wu Bei, who was in the cave, he was completely swallowed by the collapsed cave and his figure dissipated slowly. Outside Wu Bei's cave, the vast hall was still floating in the sky of the island. Inside the big hall, many experts had gathered. However, at that very moment, the eyes of the experts were focused on Lei Chao. 2 white blaze fruit trees had been obtained by that little kid from the lineage of Star. Where did the insane luck of the lineage of Star come from? With so many experts, as well as a few almighties staring at him, even Lei Chao felt fearful. However, at that moment, swish, another shadow appeared out of thin air from within the big hall. It was a silvery, white-haired old man. His face was old and his aura was very normal. Hence, he looked like an ordinary old man. However, when this old man appeared, many experts in the vast hall went silent immediately. The eyes of the Almighties also focused on the old man at once. As for Lei Chao, who had felt a bit fearful moments ago, he became delighted when the old man arrived. Palace Master! Lei Chao appeared in front of the silvery white-haired old man immediately and greeted him respectfully. It's the founder of the lineage of Star. The Star's old monster? This old bastard actually came personally? A number of Almighties frowned. However, they also knew that Jian Wushuang had obtained 2 white blaze fruit trees from Wu Bei's cave. Since this was such a big matter, it would naturally cause the founder of the lineage of Star to be alarmed. Therefore, the founder of the lineage of Star ought to come personally. You may stand up. The silvery white-haired old man who was the Star Palace Master glanced at Lei Chao and questioned him at the same time. Where's the little kid from my lineage of Star? He is still inside Wu Bei's cave and is about to come out soon, Lei Chao said immediately. Okay. The Star Palace Master nodded. After that, he looked toward the Almighties who were at the front of the big hall. Haha. Long time no see, Star old monster. A hearty laugh came from the center of the big hall from the red-haired old man who had a horn on his forehead. Quite a number of almighties beside him stood up as well. However, apart from the red-haired old man, when the other almighties looked at the Star Palace Master, it was obvious that they were looking at him with respect. Similar to universe gods and real gods, there were weak and strong almighties. There were 20 almighties present, and this was considered a lot. However, among them, only the red-haired old man could compete with the Star Palace Master. As for the other almighties, such as the owner of the Sky Sword Mountain and Tower Master Chifu, they were weaker than the Star Palace Master. Huiyu, you're here as well? The Star Palace Master looked at the red-haired old man. I just happened to be in the Red Dragon Sanctuary during this period of time. After I knew about the appearance of Wu Bei's cave, I hurried over to take a look. The red-haired old man, Huiyu, giggled. Star, come and take a seat. With a wave of Huiyu's hand, a long, narrow table appeared beside him immediately. The Star Palace Master did not stand on ceremony. With a flash of his body, he appeared in front of the long, narrow table and sat down straight away. Star, that little kid from your lineage of Star has indeed brought you credit. With so many universe gods fighting for the 3 white blaze fruit trees, he still managed to obtain 2 of them in the end. We are all really envious of you, Huiyu gasped in admiration. This little kid's luck is indeed not too bad. However, as he had obtained 2 white blaze fruit trees, there's no avoiding the attention of people with hidden agendas. Hence, I have to rush over personally to bring him back, the Star Palace Master said nonchalantly. As soon as his words left his mouth, the expressions of quite a number of almighties in the area changed slightly. Before this, there were indeed some people among the almighties who had had their eyes set on Jian Wushuang. After all, 2 white blaze fruit trees were extremely attractive. However, at the very moment, with the arrival of the Star Palace Master, those people had dropped the idea at once. They had no guts to snatch items away from the Star Palace Master. Moreover, they did not have the ability to do so either. Haha, don't be so blunt. As long as everyone understands. Huiyu chuckled. Oh right, that little kid of your lineage of Star should be coming out of the cave soon. Understood. The Star Palace Master nodded his head. With a flash of thought in his mind, an invisible seal appeared beside him and Huiyu immediately. The invisible seal was merely a technique used to prevent others from hearing their conversation. Star, could it be that you wish to tell me something? Such that you have placed a protective screen on the time and space around us. Huiyu looked toward the Star Palace Master with surprise. Indeed, I need your help with something. The Star Palace Master spoke. What's wrong? Huiyu questioned. When the little kid of my lineage of Star comes out, no matter what you see from him, please don't mention anything, the Star Palace Master said. Oh, Huiyu raised his eyebrows. Could it be that the little kid has some sort of secret? Please, just tell me whether you agree to it or not, the Star Palace Master said. Haha, after hearing such things from you, I am now very curious about that little kid. Don't worry, since you have asked me personally, I will naturally not decline. No matter what I manage to see later, I will not say anything. Huiyu laughed. The experts in the hall were still waiting. However, as the Star Palace Master came personally, there was no one who dared to plot against Jian Wushuang anymore. Very soon, Jian Wushuang came out from the cave. On the island, at the entrance of Wu Bei's cave, Jian Wushuang leapt out along with a flash of light. Just as he leapt out of the cave, the entrance behind him immediately shook and collapsed entirely. Wu Bei's cave then vanished into thin air. Jian Wushuang only shook his head in silence when he saw what happened. Jian Wushuang. Lei Chao instantly sent him a message. Did you see the palace above you? Hurry up and come over. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate but plunged towards the palace and appeared in the lofty hall. Once Jian Wushuang had appeared in the lofty hall, he instantly felt the bold, vigorous auras in the hall. Every single aura was terrifyingly strong, especially those seated in the higher areas in the hall. The casually spread aura was already suffocating him. These people... Jian Wushuang looked at the people around him and he felt dreadful. He knew clearly that anyone at the scene could kill him easily. These people were looking him up and down too. That made Jian Wushuang even more horrified. Jian Wushuang, hurry. Come and great palace master. Lei Chao's voice was heard. Palace master? Jian Wushuang was stunned and followed Lei Chao's guidance. He immediately looked at the white-haired elderly in the middle of the hall. Greetings, palace master. Jian Wushuang immediately bowed and let out a breath of relief from the bottom of his heart. It turned out that palace master came personally. I guess I don't have to worry much. Get up. Star Palace Master waved and Jian Wushuang stood up. The fiery-haired elderly next to Star Palace Master, Huoyu, looked at Jian Wushuang with a strange look in his eyes. This aura, universe god in the second heaven. Huoyu was surprised, but he instantly understood. Haha, old monster of Star Palace. I finally know this young man's secret. Haha. Huoyu laughed heartily. However, due to the restriction of the surrounding void, the people around them, including the Almighties, didn't know what he was talking about. Huoyu was one who was on equal footing as the Star Palace Master. The treasure that the Star Palace Master had made personally could conceal Jian Wushuang's aura from everyone else at the scene, including the Almighties, but not him. He definitely could tell Jian Wushuang's ins and outs then. He could tell that Jian Wushuang was merely a universe god in the second heaven, but people treated him as universe god in the third heaven because of a treasure on him that concealed his aura. As a universe god in the second heaven, he was so powerful and he was in the top 3 on the universe god ranking list. No ordinary cultivator would be able to do that. There was only one kind of person who can do that. An inverse cultivator. An inverse cultivator like real god Wu Bei. Huoyu was certain that Jian Wushuang was an inverse cultivator. Huoyu, do you remember what you promised me earlier? Star Palace Master glanced at Huoyu. Of course I do, Huoyu smiled. For white blaze fruits, and I will keep this young man from lineage of stars secret. I'll never leak his identity as an inverse cultivator to anyone in the future. How about that? 4. Star Palace Master squinted his eyes. You're good at taking advantage, huh? Haha. It's only 4 white blaze fruits. Jian Wushuang got 9 of them in the cave and also 2 white blaze fruit trees. With the 2 white blaze fruit trees, you can have however many white blaze fruits you want. What are 4 pieces to you? Huoyu laughed. The Star Palace Master was on friendly terms with him, but that didn't change the fact that he took advantage of the Star Palace Master. Plus, 4 pieces of white blaze fruits were really nothing much from the harvest that Jian Wushuang had got from Wu Bei's cave. 4 pieces of white blaze fruits, deal. The Star Palace Master agreed directly. Great. Huoyu's smile grew even wider. The people in the surroundings could see Huoyu talking to Star Palace Master, and they seemed to reach a mutual agreement, but they didn't know the context of their agreement. Jian Wushuang, pass me the white blaze fruit trees. Star Palace Master looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate and immediately took out the 2 special rings that he had gotten from Wu Bei's cave. He looked at the 2 rings and the surrounding experts, including the Almighties. There was a glimpse of heat in their eyes, but they pressed it down forcefully. The rings are quite interesting. I wonder how Wu Bei got them. Star Palace Master briefly glanced at the rings and pocketed them. Pass me the 4 pieces of white blaze fruits that you got from Wu Bei's cave, Star Palace Master said again. Jian Wushuang immediately took out 4 pieces of white blaze fruit. Star Palace Master passed the 4 pieces of white blaze fruits to Huoyu. Jian Wushuang, do you have any other matter to deal with? If not, follow me back to Lineage of Star. Star Palace Master looked at him. Palace Master, please hold on for a while. Jian Wushuang replied and came before an Almighty before everyone's watch. The Almighty was naturally the owner of Sky Sword Mountain. Senior Sky Sword, previously you told Mr. Lei Chao to send me a message. I wonder, does it still count? Jian Wushuang asked politely. Of course it counts. The owner of Sky Sword Mountain smiled. When the fight is over, I said that as long as you offered me 2 white blaze fruits, you, who I once imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison, could release anyone you wished. Here are 2 pieces of white blaze fruits. I'd like Senior Sky Sword to release Fiery King from Sky Sword Prison. Let him be free. Jian Wushuang took out 2 white blaze fruits. Haha, no problem. When I return, I shall release him immediately without any delay. The owner of Sky Sword Mountain was delighted. Please tell him to send me a message when he gets released, Jian Wushuang said as he let out a breath of relief. Fiery King, also the founder of Lineage of Scarlet. The secret skill of Scarlet Kingdom was created by Fiery King himself. Previously, when he was imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison, Fiery King took good care of him and Jian Wushuang was grateful. He wanted to rescue Fiery King. Then, he had finally made the owner of Sky Sword Mountain release Fiery King. He considered himself to be removing a thorn in his heart. 2 pieces of white blaze fruit in exchange for the freedom of a first-stage real god. Sky Sword, you made quite a good deal. Ha! Star Palace Master glanced at the owner of Sky Sword Mountain. The owner of Sky Sword Mountain smiled awkwardly. However, Star Palace Master didn't worry much about him and left with Jian Wushuang and Lei Chao soon after. It had ended. The crazy fight that was participated in by many top universe gods in the eternal chaotic world had finally come to an end. Many universe gods who had participated in the fight left with sadness. During the crazy fight, some people had died without experiencing anything big, while some people had trampled on the bodies of others and got a reputation for themselves. During this fight, Jian Wushuang was one of the most dazzling figures. In particular, Jian Wushuang had obtained 2 white blaze fruit trees and 9 white blaze fruits alone. This has allowed the Lineage of Star to become the biggest winner of the fight this time around. His name had also reverberated across the whole eternal chaotic world again. Inside an old cave within the Lineage of Star, Jian Wushuang, Hall Master Yuan and Lei Chao were standing in front of the Star Palace Master respectfully. Palace Master, I have already opened up a standalone star in the endless Milky Way. Moreover, I have already started to set up a spell. As soon as the spell is complete, we can nurture the 2 white blaze fruit trees. As for the resources needed to nurture the trees, we have already prepared quite a decent amount, Hall Master Yuan said. We only need to nurture 1 white blaze fruit tree, the Star Palace Master said. Eh? Hall Master Yuan and Jian Wushuang became stupefied. The white blaze fruit tree is extremely precious. Just 1 tree alone is enough to make many almighties go crazy. Although the Lineage of Star is one of the big powerhouses of the eternal chaotic world, we are not strong enough to have 2 trees at the same time. Hence, I have decided to give the other tree to the Emperor, the Star Palace Master said. The Emperor? Hall Master Yuan was stunned. After that, he nodded his head. As for Jian Wushuang, he had a puzzled expression. Jian Wushuang, the Emperor whom the Star Palace mentioned, should be the Purple Moon Emperor of the Purple Moon Sanctuary. The King of Venomous Worms' voice echoed in Jian Wushuang's head. As the King of Venomous Worms only grew inside Jian Wushuang's ancient god body, his existence was not known even to the Star Palace Master. The Purple Moon Emperor is equivalent to the Master of the Purple Moon Sanctuary. He is a super expert who stands at the top of the Almighties in the eternal chaotic world. Moreover, he is a lot stronger than the Star Palace Master, as well as the Almighties that you saw previously. The Star Palace Master is really smart. He knew that with the Lineage of Star's abilities alone, it would be very difficult to possess 2 white blaze fruit trees. By giving one of them to the Purple Moon Emperor, the Lineage of Star would gain the support of the Purple Moon Emperor. Hence, no one would dare to set eyes on the white blaze fruit tree in the Lineage of Star. Is that so? Jian Wushuang nodded his head. The Purple Moon Emperor? Jian Wushuang also took note of the name. Jian Wushuang. All of a sudden, the Star Palace Master looked at Jian Wushuang. It is all thanks to your abilities this time around that the Lineage of Star is able to obtain these 2 white blaze fruit trees, as well as a few white blaze fruits. The Lineage of Star is fair in meting out rewards and punishments. Since you have achieved a great feat for the Lineage of Star, I will naturally give you an award. Although this reward cannot be compared to the value of the 2 white blaze fruit trees, it will still be of use to you. How about this? If you need any treasures or resources, tell Hall Master Yuan later so that he will prepare them for you. In addition, I will allow you to enter the Real God Hall every 100 years. Moreover, you can stay inside for 1 year for every entry, until you become a real god. After hearing what was said, Jian Wushuang's eyes brightened up. The Real God Hall was the most precious training resource of the lineage of Star, and it was extremely useful to universe gods. However, it was not easy to open the Real God Hall, as every opening would require a huge price to be paid. Hence, in the lineage of Star, even if it were the Star Palace disciples, it was not easy for them to enter the Real God Hall for comprehension. For example, when Jian Wushuang had risked his life to complete the ultimate disciple task previously, his total award had only amounted to 3 months in the Real God Hall. But what about that very moment? He could enter the Real God Hall every 100 years. Moreover, he could stay for a year for each entry? What great treatment was that? Jian Wushuang, your talents knows no limit, and there might be some hope for you to become another almighty of the lineage of Star in the future. Thus, the lineage of Star will do its utmost best to help you grow. However, before this, there will still be a long journey ahead of you. The more noteworthy one is at the very moment. Your inverse cultivation test for the third heaven should be quite close to you. The Star Palace Master looked at Jian Wushuang. If you clear this final inverse cultivation test for the last heaven, you will rise to the top at one go. However, if you were to fail, there would be no more hope for you forever. Remember, you must be extremely careful. Understood? Jian Wushuang nodded his head seriously. He himself was very clear that the inverse cultivation test for the third heaven was his final test, as well as one of his greatest obstacles. This obstacle was extremely important. You may leave now. The Star Palace Master waved his hands. At once, Jian Wushuang, Hall Master Yuan and Lei Chao bowed and left. After leaving the cave, the three of them stood in the endless Milky Way. Jian Wushuang, I have passed the Palace Master's words down. From now on, you can enter the Real God Hall once every 100 years. Moreover, if you need any resources or treasures, you can tell me directly and I will do my best to help you get them, Hall Master Yuan said. Understood. Thank you very much, Hall Master Yuan. Jian Wushuang laughed. No need to stand on ceremony. By the way, did you get what you wanted from Wu Bei's cave? Hall Master Yuan looked at Jian Wushuang. What he was asking about was naturally the method of the inverse cultivator's 6th step. I got it. Jian Wushuang giggled. That's good. Continue your training. Tell me when the inverse cultivation test for the third heaven is here, so that I can help you to prepare, Hall Master Yuan said. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. After that, he headed to his own sword star. At the sword star, Qiu Yu, this Qian Kuan ring has quite a few training resources. Please share it with your sisters. For the next period of time, I will probably be staying in the lineage of Star. If you have questions that you don't understand, you can come and ask me. Jian Wushuang was looking at the maids who were below him. Thank you very much. Qiu Yu and the maids were all extremely delighted. As the Sword Star Master, Jian Wushuang treated the maids under him quite well. He would help if he could. Moreover, he would give them some training resources occasionally. For Jian Wushuang, the training resources that he gave randomly were enough to cause Qiu Yu and the rest of the maids to be over the moon. Inside a secret room, Jian Wushuang was sitting down alone with his legs crossed. From the journey to Wu Bei's cave this time round, I have benefited greatly. In addition, my soul power has risen greatly as well. For the abilities of a universe god of the second heaven like me to reach such a level is already very impressive. If I wish to continue getting stronger, I can only improve my comprehension toward the heaven's way at best. Jian Wushuang was quite helpless as well. In the end, he was only a universe god of the second heaven. Hence, his abilities were restricted. I wonder when the inverse cultivation test for the third heaven will come. Will it be soon? Jian Wushuang stayed in lineage of Star since then. He never paid attention in cultivation as his power had reached a bottleneck. The only thing he could do was improve his comprehension towards reincarnation doctrine and spacetime doctrine. However, such comprehension didn't require him to cultivate in seclusion, but natural comprehension in a relaxed state would have a better effect. Jian Wushuang stayed in Sword Star and drank with Ling Feibai, Longya and a few others occasionally. Sometimes, he would give pointers to Qiu Yu and the other maidservants regarding cultivation. Every 100 years, he would visit Real God Hall and he would stay in there for a year. The time flew past. It had been 1,800 years in the blink of an eye. In the 1,800 years, Jian Wushuang lived at ease. In the 1,800 years, he stayed in lineage of star and never left. Real God Hall. The entrance suddenly opened and Jian Wushuang, who had comprehended in it for a year, slowly exited. After he exited Real God Hall, Jian Wushuang let out a heavy sigh. As expected, ever since my comprehension towards spacetime doctrine reached the standard of passing the first level of Doctrine Palace, my comprehension towards the power of Heaven Way has stopped entirely. Even after I comprehended in Real God Hall for a year, there wasn't much improvement. Jian Wushuang felt helpless. He knew since long ago that with his improvement in comprehension, his speed of improvement was as slow as a snail, even with the assistance of Real God Hall. 100 years ago, also 100,700 years after he had come back from Wu Bei's cave, his comprehension towards spacetime doctrine already reached the standard of the first level of Doctrine Palace. After reaching that standard, he had no space for improvement in terms of comprehension towards power of Heaven Way. For the past century, there was no improvement in both Reincarnation doctrine and spacetime doctrine. I'm still restricted by my realms as universe god in the second heaven, Jian Wushuang sighed emotionally. In his current state, he had even reached the limit of unique skill that his realm could be at. It was the same in terms of soul strength. Then, even his comprehension towards power of Heaven Way had reached the limit of a universe god in the second heaven. In other words, unless he passed his third inverse cultivation test and become a universe god in the third heaven, he wouldn't improve at all in terms of his power. Many years passed, but the third inverse cultivation test never came. There weren't even any signs of it coming. Regarding that, Jian Wushuang was rather helpless too. He could only sit and wait patiently. Lineage of Star. In the rolling palaces, Jian Wushuang was walking alone slowly. On the way, he met many disciples of Lineage of Star. The disciples were discussing him quietly as they looked at him with admiration. One should know that for the past 1,800 years, the brand new Universe God ranking list and the incident in Wu Bei's cave had spread like wildfire. As the most eye-catching person in Wu Bei's cave and the third ranked on Universe God ranking list, Jian Wushuang was naturally the disciples' role model. There were even many disciples of Lineage of Star who treated Jian Wushuang as the pride of Lineage of Star. After all, ever since Star Palace Master had started Lineage of Star, Jian Wushuang had been the first to get listed in the top 3 on Universe God ranking list. But what they didn't know was that he was deeply distressed that his third inverse cultivation test had yet to come. Just then, there was a message that popped in. Mr. The person that you asked Vientiane Tower to look for, we found a clue. Jian Wushuang's footstep paused and there was a glimpse of light in his eyes. Finally, there's news. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but clench his fists. 2,000 years ago, since he had been released from Sky Sword Prison, he found Vientiane Tower and entrusted them to look for his wife for him for a price of 10 million Chaos Gem. Vientiane Tower promised that they would reply to him within 3,000 years. But then, it had been 2,000 over years and Vientiane Tower really did give him an answer. On Starland, in a secret room in the Vientiane Tower branch where Jian Wushuang had requested the task. Mr. According to your criteria, Vientiane Tower went through 2,000 years of searches and finally found one person. It is extremely likely that she is the primordial great sinner that you are looking for. A purple-haired elderly stood before Jian Wushuang as he said, Extremely likely? In other words, it's not certain. Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. It's hard to be certain. After all, her behavior is creepy and she won't reveal herself. Nor did she fight with anyone. Vientiane Tower only found her through multiple indications. We are definite that she is a primordial great sinner and she is a woman. On top of that, she only appeared in Eternal Chaotic World within the last 10,000 years. With these 3 indications, although Vientiane Tower isn't 100% sure that she is the person you're looking for, we are at least 70% confident, the purple-haired elderly said. Jian Wushuang's pupils contracted. A primordial great sinner, a woman, and she had only appeared in Eternal Chaotic World in the past 10,000 years. The 3 signs did match his wife, Lung Rushuang, Lung Rushue. It must be her. Jian Wushuang grew emotional and he immediately asked, Where is she now? According to the news that Vientiane Tower received, she is currently in Blood Demon Church in Jiugong Holy Kingdom, and she seems to hold a high position in Blood Demon Church. The purple-haired elderly replied. Blood Demon Church? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. The name Blood Demon Church itself indicated that it wasn't any kind sect. Blood Demon Church in Jiugong Holy Kingdom belonged to a strong force. They seemed to have quite a few real gods too. The purple-haired elderly smiled. In a holy kingdom means that it is outside of 10 cultivation sanctuaries? Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. Soon after he left Vientiane Tower, he returned to Lineage of Star. When he arrived at Lineage of Star, he went to see Hall Master Yuan immediately. In the cave made of unique gemstones. Jian Wushuang, it's rare that you come to see me. Could it be that your third inverse cultivation test is coming? Or did you reach a bottleneck in your cultivation and you need me to prepare some cultivation resources for you? Hall Master Yuan looked at Jian Wushuang attentively. The third inverse cultivation test never came, not even a sign. As for cultivation resources, I don't need them as of now. I came here today to ask Hall Master Yuan for a favor, Jian Wushuang said. Oh! Hall Master Yuan raised his eyebrows. He knew that Jian Wushuang's character was proud and aloof. If it was something he could do himself, he definitely wouldn't ask for the other's assistance. But then Jian Wushuang found him. He definitely ran into trouble that he couldn't resolve on his own. Tell me, what do you need me to do for you? Hall Master Yuan looked at him. I wish for Hall Master Yuan to send some of the Lineage of Star's real gods to help me go to a powerhouse and capture someone alive, Jian Wushuang said. Capture someone alive? Hall Master Yuan was surprised. That's right. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. The body of his wife Leng Rushuang was currently being controlled by Leng Rushue. Moreover, Leng Rushue was a consciousness that was given birth by the extremely evil primordial Great Sin. If he wished to rescue Leng Rushuang, he would need to first capture Leng Rushue alive. After that, he would request Hall Master Yuan's help. With an Almighty's power, it might be possible to suppress Leng Rushue and awaken his wife's, Leng Rushuang's, consciousness. Hall Master Yuan laughed indifferently and asked, which sanctuary and which sect? That powerhouse is not within the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. Instead, it is at the Jiugong Holy Kingdom. It is also said that a few real gods exist there, Jian Wushuang said. The Jiugong Holy Kingdom? Hall Master Yuan frowned all of a sudden. Hall Master Yuan, is it troublesome? When Jian Wushuang noticed a change in Hall Master Yuan's expression, he could not help but ask. It is indeed troublesome. Truthfully, it is very troublesome. Hall Master Yuan's voice became low. Jian Wushuang, if the person who you wish to capture alive is in another holy kingdom, it would be all right even though they are ruled by the Almighties. With the power that the Lineage of Star possesses, we could send experts straight away. For example, we can send Lei Chao over and help you to capture the person alive. Even though this is done, the Almighty in charge of the Holy Kingdom would not look for us over such a small matter. However, the person who you wish to capture alive now is within the Jiugong Holy Kingdom, and the Jiugong Holy Kingdom is different from the other holy kingdoms. How so? Jian Wushuang frowned. The Lineage of Star did not have to worry about the holy kingdoms controlled by Almighties. However, why was Hall Master Yuan so concerned about the Jiugong Holy Kingdom? Jian Wushuang, let me tell you the truth. The monarch of Jiugong Holy Kingdom is a real god with abilities to stand at the top. He is real god Jiugong, and just like Lei Chao, he is also in the real god ranking list. Moreover, he is ranked 5th in the real god ranking list. Hall Master Yuan said. 5th in the real god ranking list? Jian Wushuang was shocked. The real god ranking list and the universe god ranking list were quite similar in nature. For one to get into the real god ranking list, he would definitely need to be in the top few among the real gods. As for real god Jiugong, for him to be ranked 5th in the real god ranking list, his abilities are probably very close to an Almighty's. Not only is real god Jiugong powerful, his way of doing things is also very unreasonable. Moreover, the most important thing is that there was once a huge incident between him and the Lineage of Star, Hall Master Yuan said. What? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Real God Zhogong actually had a grudge against the lineage of Star? Jian Wushuang. Do you remember Ling Dan? The person who I sent you over to defeat at the Green Lightning Sect? Hall Master Yuan said. Of course I remember. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. He still remembered Ling Dan slightly. After all, it was a match that made him famous. He had defeated Ling Dan with one stroke, and later on, he had pushed back the seven-planet palace master. With that, he had become famous and got into the 20th position of the Universe God ranking list. Back then, Ling Dan had intentionally provoked the lineage of Star. If not for you appearing and defeating him, the lineage of Star would definitely have lost its prestige. After that, I intentionally sent people to investigate him in detail. After the investigation, I realized that there were some dealings between Ling Dan and Real God Zhogong. It seemed that Real God Zhogong had promised to make him his disciple if he could make the lineage of Star lose its prestige. Hall Master Yuan said. This kind of thing actually happened? Jian Wushuang understood. It was no wonder that Ling Dan was so unwise back then, where he had challenged the prestige of the lineage of Star. It was all due to Real God Zhogong's promise. Back then, Real God Zhogong was forced out of the Purple Moon Sanctuary by the lineage of Star. For many years, he dared not even take a single step into the Purple Moon Sanctuary. As for the Holy Kingdom that he controls, the experts in the lineage of Star naturally don't dare to go there. If they were to go to his Holy Kingdom and be discovered by him, he would definitely not hesitate to take action to kill the real gods of the lineage of Star. Hall Master Yuan said. Is that so? Jian Wushuang frowned. At that very moment, Lang Ruxue was in the Blood Demon Church within Zhogong Holy Kingdom. Apart from there being a few real gods in the Blood Demon Church, some of them also possess strong abilities. Hence, there would be no hope for him to charge into the Blood Demon Church and rescue Lang Ruxue alive. As such, he had to rely on the lineage of Star. However, he did not expect Zhogong Holy Kingdom to be controlled by Real God Zhogong. Jian Wushuang, it is not good to provoke Real God Zhogong. Moreover, the Zhogong Holy Kingdom is his territory and he would definitely know of any disturbances in his own territory. Hence, the real god experts of the lineage of Star absolutely cannot go there as it would be sending themselves to their own deaths. This applies to you as well. Although you are a universe god and that he might not kill you due to his identity, he can still order the experts under him to kill you. In any case, if you were to go there, you would face very high risks as well. Thus, you had better not go as there is really no choice. However, you can still get someone to go on behalf of you to capture the person. Hall Master Yuan said. No. I have to go to the Zhogong Holy Kingdom personally as that person is extremely important to me. Jian Wushuang said with a low voice. Extremely important? Hall Master Yuan frowned. Hall Master Yuan. There are some things that are inconvenient for me to tell you. However, I really have to go to the Zhogong Holy Kingdom, Jian Wushuang said. Hall Master Yuan started to mutter to himself at once. After some time, he looked at Jian Wushuang again. Jian Wushuang, it's all right if you really need to go there. I will use the resources of the lineage of Star to hire a few experts who will travel along with you to help you. Although the real gods of the lineage of Star are unable to enter Zhogong Holy Kingdom, we can still hire people secretly and Real God Zhogong won't know about it. However, you must promise me something. After reaching Zhogong Holy Kingdom, you have to think of a way to hide your identity properly. Secondly, do not take action personally. You can get the experts that I have hired for you to do the work. Understood? Jian Wushuang's eyes brightened and he spoke immediately. Since that's the case, I will make a move to Zhogong Holy Kingdom first. I have to first clarify if that person is the person who I'm looking for. After confirming, I will inform you again. No problem. Remember that you have to be very careful. Also, isn't the real god who you paid 2 white blaze fruits to get the owner of the Sky Sword Mountain to release from the Sky Sword prison in the Starland? You can look for him and get him to go with you, Hall Master Yuan said. Big Brother Fiery King? Jian Wushuang's eyes brightened up. Not long after the fight in Wu Bei's cave had ended, the Fiery King was released by the owner of the Sky Sword Mountain. After he came out, he sent a message to Jian Wushuang at once to thank him. Moreover, in recent years, the Fiery King also came from the Sky Sword Mountain to the Starland personally to thank Jian Wushuang in person. Hence, at that very moment the Fiery King was staying in the Starland. Jian Wushuang sent a message to the Fiery King at once. Blood Demon World in Jiugong Holy Kingdom. Blood Demon World was made of a dozen worlds and it had a vast territory. Blood Demon Church was the overlord of Blood Demon World, the true local tyrant. Blood Demon Church could also be considered a strong force, even within Jiugong Holy Kingdom. Blood Demon World was one of the many worlds. In a pavilion in an ordinary city, a man and a woman sat together. The man was a middle-aged man in loose, long robe while the woman was a beauty in a white robe. From their behavior they should be husband and wife. Husband. It has been 3 days. Why hasn't Protector Jin Yen arrived? The beauty in a white robe creased her eyebrows. Don't worry. Protector Jin Yen already messaged me. He will be here soon, the middle-aged man said. I feel that Protector Jin Yen isn't reliable. He is from Blood Demon Church after all. The people from Blood Demon Church are all demons. The beauty in a white robe looked concerned. Sure. The middle-aged man signaled her to keep quiet and he said, It's okay if you say that elsewhere, but in Blood Demon World, don't speak recklessly. Otherwise, we might be killed. The beauty in a white robe felt her heart skip a beat. Actually, I know that there's a risk asking for help from experts in Blood Demon Church. But we have no choice. Only they can help us with the trouble we're having. Otherwise, the middle-aged man sighed and felt helpless too. If it wasn't because he had no choice, he wouldn't get involved with anyone in Blood Demon Church. Then, a few figures walked into the pavilion at the same time. The one walking at the front was a blonde, brawny elderly. Both the middle-aged man and the beauty in a white robe stood up simultaneously as they saw the people. Protector Jin Yen, the middle-aged man greeted with a smile. The blonde, brawny elderly who walked in the pavilion glanced at the middle-aged man and he looked calm. But when he saw the beauty in a white robe behind him, there was a change in his expression and there was a strange look in his eyes. Haha, Universe God Chi-E, right? Come, let's sit and discuss. The blonde, brawny elderly, Protector Jin Yen, smiled as the three of them sat by the table. Then the middle-aged man poured some wine. Protector Jin Yen, sorry to trouble you to get involved personally. My wife and I shall raise our glasses in a toast. The middle-aged man, Universe God Chi-E, raised his glass. You're welcome. Protector Jin Yen smiled as he looked towards the beauty in a white robe. After chugging the wine, Protector Jin Yen said, Universe God Chi-E, the favor that you asked for is quite troublesome. Even I have to spend some time and effort to take care of it. If you really want to resolve this, you have to show some sincerity. With the agreed price, it might not be enough. Not enough. Universe God Chi-E creased his eyebrows. Actually, the price he had paid was already very high, but he was well prepared as Protector Jin Yen was a man in Blood Demon Church. I wonder what else Protector Jin Yen needs. I will prepare for you immediately, Universe God Chi-E replied. You don't have to prepare anything. The thing that I want, you have it right now, Protector Jin Yen said. Oh, Universe God Chi-E looked confused. Actually, it's nothing major. I'd like your wife to serve me for a while. Not long, maybe about 100 or 200 years will do, Protector Jin Yen said casually. What? Universe God Chi-Yi's face suddenly grew grave. The beauty in a white robe next to him was terrified too. Protector Jin Yen, your joke is not funny at all. Universe God Chi had already stood up, anger raging in his eyes. I don't have the time to make a joke with you. Protector Jin Yan's face grew cold too. Your wife has to serve me for 200 years. Otherwise, I will not help you. Humph, you will not help. There will be other people who are willing to help. June Air, let's go. Universe God Chi pulled the beauty in a white robe by her arm and wanted to leave. Hold on, Protector Jin Yen smirked coldly. Although the deal didn't go through, I can't be making a trip for nothing, right? How about this? The price that you offered previously, forget about it. But your wife has to stay. Protector Jin Yen, don't go overboard. Universe God Qi and the beauty in a white robe was angry. Overboard? Haha, this is Blood Demon World and Blood Demon Church rules here. I can do whatever I like. Who can do anything to me? You should blame your wife for being so enchanting that I can't stand the temptation. Protector Jin Yen scoffed as he stood up. Brothers, go and catch the beauty for me. When I'm done with her, all of you can take turns for her to serve you. Haha. Thank you, Protector Jin Yen. The few universe gods who stood at the side looked excited, their burning gazes fixed onto the beauty in a white robe. Bastard! Universe God Qi was angry and his aura suddenly soared. This annoying universe god Qi. Just kill him. The few universe gods from Blood Demon Church had a sudden murderous intention and Hong. A massacre was suddenly induced. The exquisite pavilion instantly broke into parts from the impact of divine power. Universe God Qi and the other few people's figures instantly soared up in the void above the city, and they startled the cultivators in the entire city. Husband! The beauty in a white robe had a green sword in her hand as she rushed onto the battlefield. However, although the couple were universe gods in the second heaven, their opponents were 5 universe gods in the second heaven. Plus, there was Protector Jin Yen, who was a universe god in the third heaven, watching by the side. Humph! Just a universe god in the second heaven, and he wants to counterattack? Protector Jin Yen smirked in disdain, and he fixed his gaze on the beauty in a white robe. Don't hurt my beauty. I have to take good care of her. With a malicious smile, Protector Jin Yen moved and appeared behind the beauty in a white robe. He extended his hand to grab her shoulder. Husband! The beauty in a white robe was frightened and went as pale as a sheet. You evil Jin Yen! Universe God Qi let out a shrill roar that shook the heavens and earth. Just as Protector Jin Yan's palm reached for the beauty in a white robe's shoulder, vroom! A shapeless force suddenly soared over from nowhere, and Protector Jin Yan's smile immediately stiffened. The few experts from Blood Demon Church who were besieging Universe God Qi looked terrified too. The next moment, the few persons' gazes grew dim and their bodies fell helplessly. That sight shocked all the cultivators in the city who were watching the battle. In the void, Universe God Qi and the beauty in white robe were shocked at the sight. My husband, what happened to them? The white-robed, beautiful woman questioned shockingly. It's an expert. An expert has acted secretly to help us. Universe God Qi was looking at the void around him. However, he did not manage to find the origin of that power. No matter who helped us, both of us are extremely grateful. Universe God Qi bowed down to the void around him. After that, he pulled his wife's hand and left immediately. The city then went into a complete uproar. A protector of the Blood Demon Church had died within the city, and this was a big matter. Moreover, the most important thing was that it was unknown who the protector was killed by or how he was killed. Many cultivators from the city had started to find the mysterious expert who attacked the protector. However, they were unable to find him. At the very next moment, just opposite the void where the fight had broken out between Universe God Qi and the protector, 2 figures were sitting down on a spot near the window in a pub. Jian Wushuang, didn't Hall Master Yuan of the lineage of Star remind you many times not to act unless you have absolutely no choice? Why did you act in the end? The fiery king who had scarlet hair, scarlet eyebrows, and even a scarlet beard looked at Jian Wushuang while laughing and holding a wine cup. I have already checked. Although there are quite a number of cultivators in this city, the strongest person is only a normal universe god of the third heaven. Hence, no one will be able to tell that I am the one who did it, Jian Wushuang said indifferently. Even if that's the case, we must still be careful. As the fiery king spoke, he exclaimed in admiration soon after, however, the Blood Demon Church's people's way of doing things is really unreasonable. They were actually snatching other people's wives without any restraint in front of so many cultivators in the city. It is no wonder that the cultivators of the Blood Demon Church would say that the Blood Demon Church's people are all demons. Looking at it now, that seems to be the case. Jian Wushuang frowned slightly. Back then, by just hearing the name, he could tell that the Blood Demon Church was not a decent powerhouse. After coming to the Blood Demon world for real, he realized that the Blood Demon Church was even more evil than he had expected. For example, a small matter like snatching other people's wives could make the Blood Demon Church's people start killing people. The Blood Demon Church still had some small powerhouses and sections. On ordinary days, as soon as they disrespected the Blood Demon Church even the slightest bit, the Blood Demon Church would destroy the sect straight away or even destroy their clan. All in all, the Blood Demon Church was the overlord of the Blood Demon world. Such a powerhouse actually existed for so many years in the world. Yet no experts acted to destroy it. The fiery king muttered. If the Blood Demon Church dared to do such things within the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, they would have been destroyed many times. However, this place is only a holy kingdom. Hence, the Blood Demon Church is considered a top powerhouse. As long as one is not stupid enough to provoke real God Zhogong, he would not be killed, Jian Wushuang said. However, his mind was filled with worries. After all, there was a high possibility that Leng Ruxue was inside the Blood Demon Church. Jian Wushuang, what do we do now? The fiery king looked over. Let's go somewhere near the Blood Demon Church's base. I have to first confirm whether the person I'm looking for is there, Jian Wushuang said. In no time, Jian Wushuang and the fiery king set off. The Blood Demon Church's base was within one of the regions of the Blood Demon Church. When Jian Wushuang stepped into this region, Jian Wushuang's heart skipped a beat and he took out a token immediately. It was a special golden token and it was given to him by Emperor Tang after his marriage with Leng Rushuang in the Green Fire world back then. When Leng Rushuang's consciousness was about to go into a deep sleep, Emperor Tang had intentionally left a seal inside her consciousness. Unless Leng Rushuang's consciousness woke up and she went to erase the seal herself, it would be impossible to erase the seal even if Leng Ruxue was controlling the body and had her abilities rise to a very high level. As for the golden token, it could sense the existence of that seal. When Jian Wushuang appeared in the region where the Blood Demon Church was in that very moment, the golden token had a reaction. As expected, it's her. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly and he was extremely excited. Previously, although he obtained the news from the Vientiane Tower, be it the Vientiane Tower or him, they were unable to confirm if the person within the base of the Blood Demon Church was actually Leng Ruxue. However, at that very moment Jian Wushuang could confirm. Shuanger, I have finally found you. Please wait a while longer. In no time, I will get your consciousness to wake up and let you control your own body again. Jian Wushuang's eyes were glowing brilliantly. Of course, before that, he still needed to be sure of the true abilities of the Blood Demon Church. As a powerful overlord within the Zhogong Holy Kingdom, the Blood Demon Church had quite a number of experts. Among them, those who stood at the highest level were naturally the few real gods, and below them were a few elders who were peak universe gods of the third heaven. Among those elders, one of them was Elder Shuiyang. Elder Shuiyang had come from a normal region within the Zhogong Holy Kingdom originally. Moreover, when he was small and weak, he had been chased around by strong enemies. As such, he had escaped to the outside world and roamed about everywhere. After that, as he had no choice, he went to the Blood Demon world and joined the Blood Demon Church with an identity as a universe god of the first heaven. With the help and the resources within the Blood Demon Church, his abilities grew continuously and he became an elder of the Blood Demon Church in the end. When he became an elder, he lived his life comfortably. In the Blood Demon world, one could run wild willfully. When many weak forces in the Blood Demon world were facing him, they trembled in fear and were extremely terrified of him as they were scared that they might have offended him. Everywhere he went, people would bow to him and try to win his favor. As soon as ignorant people provoked him, he would not need to act personally. Instead, by giving an order on the second day, that person, the sect that he was in, his loved ones and good friends would all be killed. Thus, it could be said that within the Blood Demon world, one sentence of his could decide the fate of many people. Elder Shuiyang also enjoyed the power and influence that he possessed. However, at that very moment, his good days were about to come to an end. Who are the both of you? Elder Shuiyang's eyes were filled with a bit of fear as he looked at the two people who had appeared in front of him all of a sudden. For the two people, one of them was carrying a long sword while the body of the other person was like fire. Moreover, either one of them could give him, a peak universe god of the third heaven, pressure that he never experienced before. The pressure that he experienced was even greater than the pressure he had felt whilst facing the few real gods within the Blood Demon Church. I wish to ask you something. You had better answer it truthfully. Jian Wushuang's expression was cold, and he was staring at Elder Shuiyang. I will do my best. Elder Shuiyang's throat was trembling. I know that you are an elder of the Blood Demon Church, which is considered quite a high position within the Blood Demon Church. Therefore, you should know some of the matters within the Blood Demon Church. Let me ask you, how many real gods does the Blood Demon Church have, and how strong are they? Jian Wushuang's low voice echoed in the ears of Elder Shuiyang. The two of them are aiming at Blood Demon Church. Elder Shuiyang felt terrified, but he didn't reply to Jian Wushuang's question instantly. He knew clearly how brutal Blood Demon Church's conduct was. If he were to expose the privacy of the internal Blood Demon Church and they were to find out, he would definitely end miserably. Why? You're not willing to? Fiery King glanced at Elder Shuiyang. It seems like you will have to suffer for a bit. Elder Shuiyang. Jian Wushuang suddenly spoke. Elder Shuiyang looked at Jian Wushuang subconsciously and was immediately attracted by the glaring crimson light in Jian Wushuang's eyes. The crimson light was like a scarlet sun that was extremely eye-catching. 18 Azura hell instantly descended. No, no! Elder Shuiyang instantly gave out a blood-curdling scream. He fell into the dreamland and was unable to free himself from it. With Jian Wushuang's current soul strength, it was close to a real god's dreamland when he performed 18 Azura hell with his all, and it was extremely torturous to one's body and mind. Although Elder Shuiyang was a peak universe god in the third heaven, he couldn't endure the terrifying torture of 18 Azura hell. Ah! Elder Shuiyang's eyes were bloodshot and his face was distorted in agony. He looked extremely ferocious. The entire heaven and earth was drowned in his shrill scream. Luckily, before Jian Wushuang had pulled him into dreamland, Fiery King had already set up a layer of restraint at the surrounding void. Hence, the scream never spread and there was no communication allowed. Very soon, Elder Shuiyang walked through each kind of torture in the dreamland and it slowly dispersed. Elder Shuiyang looked exhausted as he collapsed on the ground. However, there was still an unprecedented fear on his face. Elder Shuiyang, the earlier dreamland, do you want to experience it again? Jian Wushuang glared at Elder Shuiyang and said coldly, Don't be in a hurry. We have time. The earlier Phantasmagoria, if you are willing to, we can do it 10 times or 100 times. 10 times? 100 times? Just one time could make Elder Shuiyang close to going mad. No. I'll tell you everything. Elder Shuiyang shook his head and shouted. Jian Wushuang and Fiery King smirked coldly at his reply. Jian Wushuang, your torturing measure is really impressive. Fiery King couldn't hold back his compliments. In terms of power, Fiery King might be stronger by one notch. However, in terms of torturing measure, Jian Wushuang, who was a universe god good at soul attacks, was much more skillful than Fiery King. When he performed 18 Azura hell with his all, forget about Elder Shuiyang, even an ordinary real god might not be able to withstand it. Tell me, in Blood Demon Church, how many real gods are there in total? Jian Wushuang inquired. There's a total of 4. There are 3 first-stage Void Real God, and the other one is the founder of Blood Demon Church, who is a real god who already reached the 2nd stage. Elder Shuiyang didn't dare to hide. 2nd stage. Jian Wushuang's pupils contracted. Eternal real god? Fiery King's face grew solemn. In Eternal Chaotic World, there were 3 stages for a real god. The first stage was Void Real God, which was the most ordinary king. In 10 cultivation sanctuaries, some weaker sects were appendage to real gods of that stage. For instance, 7-planet palace master who Jian Wushuang had once suppressed, the real gods that were imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison, including Fiery God, Blood Emperor, Heartless King, and so on, they were all in that stage. However, Fiery King was considered at the peak of Void Real God. The 2nd stage of Real God was Eternal Real God. Real gods at this stage were much rarer than the first stage Void Real gods. Even within 10 cultivation sanctuaries, if an Eternal Real God were willing, he could easily start a force or sect. For instance, most of the Deacon Elderlies were Eternal Real God. As for the third stage of real god, it was known as chaotic real god. Those were real gods at the peak. There were very few real gods of that stage. Even a force like Lineage of Star had very few chaotic real gods. Of course, the bunch of chaotic real god at the peak were listed on the real god ranking list. Their fighting power was extremely strong. Like Lei Chao, he was one of the chaotic real god listed on real god ranking list. For the 3 stages of real god, every stage marks a vast difference. The eternal real god in Blood Demon Church is much scarier than the 3 void real gods team up, Fiery God explained. Besides the 4, is there any other experts in Blood Demon Church? I'm referring to the kind that is always in seclusion and hardly reveal themselves normally. Jian Wushuang continued to ask. I really have no idea. Elder Shuiyang shook his head and said pathetically, Mister, although I am an elderly in Blood Demon Church, there are about 20 elderlies like myself in Blood Demon Church. We are considered higher-ups, but we have no idea about the core secret in Blood Demon Church. For instance, I have no idea if there's any hidden expert in Blood Demon Church. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes and didn't doubt what Elder Shuiyang said. I have a portrait here. Take a look and see if you know this person or if you have seen this person in Blood Demon Church. Jian Wushuang took out a painting of Lang Rushuang. Elder Shuiyang took a look at the portrait, and he immediately looked shocked, but he immediately shook his head. Mister, I've never seen this person. Are you sure? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. I am sure. After all, a lady that looks this beautiful, if I were to see her, I'd definitely have an impression, but I don't recall at all. This lady is definitely not in Blood Demon Church. Even if she were, I reckon she should be kept as maidservant by the people in the church. A maidservant that is so beautiful, who's willing to bring her out to share with everyone. Elder Shuiyang had yet to finish his sentence. Pack. Jian Wushuang had already given Elder Shuiyang a tight slap. Then, Elder Shuiyang immediately spat a mouthful of blood and stunned. Maidservant. Jian Wushuang harumphed coldly. He knew very clearly that there might be people with great power in the world who could forcefully take control of a primordial great sinner. However, in Blood Demon Church, there wasn't anyone who had the ability to. Plus, according to the information that he had gotten from Vientiane Tower, Lang Rushua's position in Blood Demon Church was extraordinary. You'd better think about it carefully. If you say any more nonsense, you're going to die. Jian Wushuang bellowed. Yes, yes. Elder Shuiyang nodded continuously, and his eyes suddenly twinkled. Yeah, mister. There's a mysterious person in Blood Demon Church. He might be the person you're looking for. A mysterious person? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Tell me, this person came to the Blood Demon Church more than 200 years ago. Moreover, she brought along a servant. For the past years, they have been living in the ancient Demon Mountain. Elder Shuiyang continued speaking. Ever since she came, the churchmaster gave an order not to go near the ancient Demon Mountain. For the past 200 years, we never saw this person coming out again, although we knew that such a person did exist. Naturally, I have never seen her before. However, I can confirm she is a young woman and our churchmaster addresses her as Lang Zuanju. Lang Zuanju? Jian Wushuang's eyes shrank. It's definitely her. Draw me the location of the ancient Demon Mountain, Jian Wushuang ordered. Understood. Elder Shuiyang agreed without hesitation. After Jian Wushuang had obtained what he wanted, looking at the fact that you are cooperative, I can let you die an easier death. Jian Wushuang shot a glance toward Elder Shuiyang. What? Elder Shuiyang was shocked. When he was about to say something, a soul power headed for him straight away. After that, before he was even able to give a horrible shriek, he became an icy-cold body. With a wave of the Fiery King's hand, a great amount of flames appeared and burnt Elder Shuiyang's body to ashes. Jian Wushuang, Lang Zuanju is the person you're looking for, right? The Fiery King asked. That's right. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. However, she is currently staying in the Blood Demon Church. Hence, it is next to impossible for her to come out by herself. There's no choice, we can only storm in. Charge and forcefully? The Fiery King frowned slightly. The Blood Demon Church has a total of 4 real gods, and among them, There is also an eternal real God. Hence, it is not a good idea to provoke them. I understand. However, the Blood Demon Church is very weak in comparison to the lineage of Star. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold, and he immediately sent a message to Hall Master Yuan. Jian Wushuang, I have already hired 3 real gods for you, and they will arrive at the Blood Demon Church in a short while. At that time, they will contact you. With the 3 real gods and Fiery King who is with you, you can suppress the Blood Demon Church easily. Hall Master Yuan answered with great confidence. Thank you. I'm sorry to have troubled you. Jian Wushuang thanked Hall Master Yuan. After that, he waited quietly near the base of the Blood Demon Church with the Fiery King. At the ancient demon mountain within the base of the Blood Demon Church. At the summit of the ancient demon mountain, there was a delicate black hall, and there was a white-clothed woman sitting inside it. The white-clothed woman's face was covered with a veil, and her looks could not be clearly seen. However, just her partially revealed face was enough to excite countless cultivators. The most important thing was that she was extremely cold and elegant. Such coldness and elegance was enough to captivate the souls of the people. She was Lung Xuanzhu, who Elder Shuiyang mentioned. At the very moment, behind Lung Xuanzhu, there was a black-robed person standing respectfully, and she was completely covered by the black robe. Number 7. Please ask the Blood Demon Churchmaster about the progress of that matter. Lung Xuanzhu asked coldly. Master, please don't worry. Not long ago, the Blood Demon Churchmaster sent me a message. In 10 years' time, he will be able to complete what we asked of him. A hoarse, low voice could be heard from under the black robe of the black-robed person. From the sound of it, the black-robed person seemed to be an old married woman. He still needs 10 more years? His speed is really slow. I think he can stop being the Blood Demon Churchmaster. Lung Xuanzhu remained indifferent. It seemed that in her eyes, the Blood Demon Churchmaster who had achieved the level of eternal real God was about the same as an ant. Master, with just a request from you, many people would be willing to allow you to take over the Blood Demon Church in place of him. The old married woman under the black robe laughed. Oh right. His Highness Mu Hong should be reaching in a few days' time, right? His Highness Mu Hong? Haha, he is really persistent. Did he come to earn my favor again? Lung Xuanzhu laughed coldly. His Highness Mu Hong knows that the master needs the 7-star moon warbler lotus. Hence, he used his father, the 7th Palace Master's power, and almost destroyed a holy kingdom. With that, he finally obtained the 7-star moon warbler lotus, and this time round, he is coming over intentionally to give it to you, the black-robed old married woman said. Oh, looks like the 7th Palace Master really treats him like a treasure on his skin. However, it's also because of this that Mu Hong was able to live until now. If not, with his attitude, he would have been killed by people many times a long time ago. Since he wishes to earn my favor, so be it. Lung Xuanzhu sneered, and her eyes glowed with a cold light. After a few days, somewhere near the Blood Demon Church, the 3 real gods who Hall Master Yuan had hired to help Jian Wushuang arrived. Atop the vast void, 3 figures flew side by side. Among the 3 of them, the leader was a big and tall man who wore a bronze armor. As for the other 2, one of them was a red-robed old married woman, while the other one was a slightly hunchbacked, bald old man. As for Jian Wushuang, he felt an extremely huge amount of pressure from the 3 of them. Gosh! 2 eternal real gods, and the last one is actually a chaotic real god. The Fiery King revealed a shocked expression. In the 3 stages of real God, he was only at the top of the first stage. However, among the 3 people in front of him, 2 of them were at the 2nd stage, while the last person was at the 3rd stage of a real God. With such a lineup, even if they were to be placed in the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, it would be enough to destroy some medium-sized powerhouses that were weak in power. You are Jian Wushuang? The 3 real gods looked toward Jian Wushuang. Although Jian Wushuang was only a universe god, he was a super demon who ranked 3rd in the universe god ranking list. Moreover, he was also a Star Palace disciple of the lineage of Star. When looking at such a genius, the 3 real gods remained modest. I am Long Qing, and you can call me Real God Long Qing. As for the 2 of them, they are Real God Bai Ying and Real God Yin Tuo respectively. Among the 3 of them, the big, tall, bronze-armored man, who was also the strongest as a chaotic real god, opened his mouth to make his introduction. I am Jian Wushuang. Greetings to the three of you. Jian Wushuang greeted the three of them modestly. Hall Master Yuan has told us the objective of this trip. However, as for the details for this operation, you will be the one to call the shots, Real God Longqing said. As Hall Master Yuan had given them great benefits, they had come to give Jian Wushuang a hand. For a short period of time, they would take instructions from Jian Wushuang. Since the three of you already know the objective, I need not say much. However, I must stress that the person I want must be captured alive. If there is really no choice, you can injure her. However, you cannot kill her. I would rather let her escape than let her die, Jian Wushuang said earnestly. The three real gods looked at each other in blank dismay and nodded their heads. They could also tell that the person Jian Wushuang wanted to capture alive had a special relationship with him. Also, I have obtained reliable news that Lung Zuanju, who I wanted to capture alive, is currently within the ancient demon mountain of the Blood Demon Church. Moreover, she has not left the ancient demon mountain for over 200 years. Hence, we have no choice but to charge in forcefully. I had some dealings with Blood Demon Church before. Although there are 4 real gods besides Blood Demon Churchmaster who reached the 2nd stage, the other 3 are just 1st stage void real gods. With our lineup, we can easily suppress Blood Demon Church. A bald elderly with a hunchback, real god In Tuo said. Even so, let's not let our guards down. Jian Wushuang glanced at everyone around him. When we launch attack later, real god Baiying, real god In Tuo and brother Fiery King, the 3 of you tear the protective array apart and barge into Blood Demon Church for a massacre. The bigger the movement, the better. Real God Longqing and I will seize the time when Blood Demon Church is in chaos to head over to Ancient Demon Mountain to capture Lord Leng alive. We retreat once we have caught her. Okay. Real God Longqing nodded. You get the final say. Real God Baiying and Real God In Tuo showed respect to Jian Wushuang too. Only Fiery King creased his eyebrows. Jian Wushuang, you want to head to Ancient Demon Mountain personally? He remembered Hall Master Yuan had exhorted for Jian Wushuang not to reveal himself. I am responsible for Lord Leng. If I don't go personally, I can't be at ease, Jian Wushuang replied. If so, all right then. But, please be extremely careful, Fiery King said. Jian Wushuang nodded heavily. Very soon, the 5 of them arrived before the lair of Blood Demon Church. The 3 of you have to take action first, Jian Wushuang said. Don't worry about it. Real God Baiying, Real God In Tuo and Fiery King immediately moved forward. Jian Wushuang and Real God Longqing hid behind. Very quickly, Hong! The terrifying roar was heard from the void in the front and boundless crimson god burst out. It tore an opening in the protective array of Blood Demon Church. In the lair of Blood Demon Church, it instantly stirred a commotion. Who is it? A roar reverberated in the universe along with angry voices. Haha, giblets of Blood Demon Church, you exterminated the Fiery family 3 million years ago and I, Fiery King, have come back to take revenge. A laugh with tremendous momentum and a tinge of madness rang across the universe like thunder. Jian Wushuang could recognize Fiery King's voice the moment he heard it. As for whatever Fiery King had said about 3 million years, it was merely a random excuse that he had made up. There were countless powers and tribes that Blood Demon Church had exterminated in Blood Demon World. They reckoned they themselves didn't know if they had exterminated the Fiery family. Naturally, they thought Fiery King was simply there to take revenge. Hong! In Blood Demon Church, Real God Baiying, Real God In Tuo and Fiery King spread their ferocious aura. Especially Real God Baiying and Real God In Tuo, as they were 2 eternal real gods. 3 experts barging in and the experts in Blood Demon Church felt as though it was the end of the world. The team immediately exploded and all the real gods launched attacks wantonly. The universe gods had no room to interfere. Blood Demon Church was naturally in utter confusion and chaos. At that very moment, Jian Wushuang, who was waiting near the lair of Blood Demon Church, squinted his eyes. Real God Longqing, let's move, Jian Wushuang said. Let me reign in my aura. The The few real gods in Blood Demon Church were flustered at the sudden attack by Real God Bai Ying and the others. I think they won't have the time to probe carefully, so they shouldn't be able to notice me, Real God Long Qing said. That's great, let's go. Jian Wushuang and Universe God Long Qing immediately turned into flowing light and passed through the opening of Blood Demon Church's protective array to enter into Blood Demon Church. Then, Jian Wushuang took out the route map that Elder Shuiyang had drawn earlier and he plunged in the direction where Ancient Demon Mountain was located. Although they had met many cultivators of Blood Demon Church on the way, the universe gods in Blood Demon Church were fleeing in a panic, helter-skelter. They didn't even bother to look at Jian Wushuang and Real God Long Qing. Even when they saw them, they would only treat them as people in Blood Demon Church. As for the real gods in Blood Demon Church who were fighting in the void, they were even more unlikely to notice them. Jian Wushuang and Real God Long Qing entered the depth of Blood Demon Church without hindrance. Ancient Demon Mountain. It's there. Jian Wushuang lifted his head and looked up at the ancient lofty peak at the end of his field of vision. That peak was Ancient Demon Mountain, also where Lord Ling stayed. Jian Wushuang and Real God Long Qing were approaching Ancient Demon Mountain at a terrifying speed. In the Black Palace on Ancient Demon Mountain. Lung, this is the 7-star moon warbler lotus. I've put in a great effort and finally got it. A stony-faced young man in a luxurious purple long robe flashed an enchanting smile while sitting before Lord Lung. He was holding the 7-star moon warbler lotus in his hand. Looking at the 7-star moon warbler lotus, Lord Lung's eyes glistened and smiled. Thank you, Your Highness Mu Hong. Don't mention it. The stony-faced man. His Highness Mu Hong looked at Lord Lung with passion in his eyes. Lung, I am quite free recently and I'd like to keep you company in Blood Demon Church. I wonder if it's okay. Your Highness Mu Hong, you must be joking. With your background, you can go wherever you like. If you were to want to stay in Blood Demon Church, would there be anyone who would chase you away? Blood Demon Church Master doesn't have the guts to. Lord Ling smiled and replied. Haha. So you agree. His Highness Mu Hong immediately beamed with joy. Just then, Hong. A vigorous roar was heard from afar, and the few people in the Black Palace were frightened. What happened? His Highness Mu Hong's face changed slightly. It's Blood Demon Church. There were 3 real gods that barged in. They seem to be there to take revenge, and they are fighting the Blood Demon Church Master now. A chubby red-haired middle-aged man behind His Highness Mu Hong replied. Is that so? His Highness Mu Hong nodded. Blood Demon Church worked for them and had made so many enemies. When the enemies had no power, they naturally could only hold back. Whenever they grew stronger, they would return to take revenge. It was very normal. His Highness Blood Demon Church Master sent a message and said that the enemy is too strong. They couldn't stand it any longer. They'd like to ask your Highness for help. The chubby, middle-aged man said. Humph, I just got here. I have no time to bother with this affair. Tell him to figure it out himself and that he has to take care of it soon. If it were to interrupt Lung and I'd kill him. His Highness Mu Hong sounded cold. Let me tell him now. The chubby middle-aged man was going to reply. Something's wrong. The old lady in a black robe behind Lord Leng said in a hoarse voice. What's wrong? His Highness Mu Hong and the fat, middle-aged man looked toward the old married woman. Someone has entered the spell that I have placed, the black-robed old married woman said. Oh. His Highness Mu Hong frowned and shot a glance toward the fat middle-aged man who was beside him. Go and take a look. Understood. With a change of his body, the fat, middle-aged man disappeared from the palace. Number 7, you go as well. Lang Zuanju instructed. The black-robed old married man's figure also disappeared from the palace. Jian Wushuang and Real God Long Qing had just reached the void around the ancient demon mountain. The moment they arrived, they were caught within a spell. Such a spell was simple. Hence, Jian Wushuang and Real God Long Qing broke the spell quickly. However, at that moment, swish, a shadow appeared at the void in front of them. It was the fat middle-aged man. A universe god? The fat middle-aged man first swept his eyes across Jian Wushuang, and he revealed a surprised expression. However, after that, He took a look at real god Longqing and his eyes shrank hastily. Jian Wushuang. Looks like there are some mistakes in your information. There are other real gods present within the Blood Demon Church. Moreover, he should be a very powerful eternal real god. Real god Longqing said. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded his head slightly and said immediately, I will leave this eternal real god to you. Haha. Leave it to me. Real god Longqing laughed heartily, and a scarlet long spear appeared in his hands. Swoosh! With a flash of his body which looked like teleportation, real god Longqing appeared beside the fat middle-aged man. The scarlet long spear in his hands then stabbed abruptly. Boom! The void collapsed at once. The whole universe was drawn in by the scarlet spear instantly, and in no time, the whole boundless universe headed toward the fat middle-aged man with great power. Such frightening power changed into an ear-piercing sound explosion. Kill! 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 Although real god Longqing did not open his mouth, Jian Wushuang and the fat middle-aged man who were near the area seemed to have heard hysterical shouting sounds shouting, Kill! A chaotic real god? The fat middle-aged man's expression changed greatly, and he immediately swung his fat palms. Following his swing, a giant mountain appeared in front of him at once. The mountain was golden in color and it gave off an ancient vibe. The mountain was then used to block the attack of the scarlet longspear. However, at the next moment, the lofty mountain crumbled into pieces instantly. Even the ground, which was connected to it, caved in as if it had completely disappeared. What shocking power! This is a chaotic real god. Jian Wushuang revealed an astonished expression. He had seen real gods fighting before. However, those real gods were merely normal real gods of the first stage. As for chaotic real gods who were at the third stage, he had seen Lei Chao killing a real god before. However, as Lei Chao was very powerful and the real gods who he was killing were too weak, he was not able to tell the difference. However, at the very moment, after seeing real god Longqing's attack, he understood how frightening a chaotic real god was. He was very certain that it was lucky that the real god who stood in front of real god Longqing was a very powerful eternal real god. If it were a void real god who was at the first stage with a stab from real god Longqing, he would probably be able to kill tens of them. Humph! With a cold shout, the fat middle-aged man retreated quickly and his expression also became ghostly pale. Trying to escape? Real god Longqing was filled with murderous intent. However, at the moment when real god Longqing chased the fat middle-aged man, a figure appeared behind Jian Wushuang quietly. Swoosh! A dim light came out of the fingertips of the figure and headed towards Jian Wushuang's neck. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang's body changed and he avoided the dim light easily. He actually dodged it? The black-robed old married woman who became visible was surprised when she saw what had happened. It should be known that she was an eternal real god. Even though she had launched a surprise attack on a universe god abruptly, she had still failed to kill him. Jian Wushuang's blood mountain sword had already appeared in his hands and his icy cold eyes looked toward the black-robed old married woman. Another one. Seems like it's another eternal real god. Jian Wushuang was shocked. It was obvious that there were more hidden experts in the Blood Demon Church than he had expected. Little kid, a universe god like you actually dares to come here? Aren't you very gutsy? The black-robed old married woman laughed with a hoarse voice. After that, she lifted the sleeves of her robe and revealed 10 pitch-black, wizened fingers which were below the sleeves of her robe. At that very moment, the 10 fingers were filled with dim light and in no time, rustle, rustle, rustle. A total of 10 rays of light shot out at the same time. Humph! Jian Wushuang gave a cold shout and his body dashed forward fiercely. Swish! A total of 18 shadows appeared at the same time. Jian Wushuang's body was like a ghost which passed through the void hastily. At the same time, he also bypassed the dim lights and in the blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of the black-robed old married woman. Crimson light. His sword light glowed as if it were crimson lightning and it headed straight for the black-robed old married woman's neck. Compared to back when he was in Wu Bei's cave, the power of the crimson lightning that Jian Wushuang had unleashed at that very moment had risen considerably. In particular, its speed had become about twice as fast. This martial art motion? The black-robed old married woman revealed an astonished expression. After that, the 5 fingers on one of her hands changed into a sharp claw at once and headed toward the crimson lightning. Clang! A sound resembling the sounds of metal clashing could be heard, and the black-robed old married woman's body floated backwards. At the same time, she revealed a smile. I see. No wonder his abilities are so impressive. It was obvious that the black-robed old married woman had already figured out Jian Wushuang's identity. However, at that very moment, bam! It was another loud sound. A short distance away, the fat, middle-aged man was spitting out many mouthfuls of blood continuously from his mouth. His aura then became weaker in an instant. Such a scene had caused the eyes of the black-robed old married woman to shrink. At the next moment, boom! Imposing divine power which could blot out the sky burst forth from her body and headed toward the universe. The divine power came together at the void and transformed into red giant stones. The giant stones then stacked onto and pressed against each other, forming a giant prison that was completely made up of red giant stones. Moreover, the prison had many red walls, and in a split second, the red walls isolated Jian Wushuang and real god Long Qing completely. Taking advantage of the moment that the red stone prison was forming, the black-robed old married woman and the fat middle-aged man retreated immediately. This is... Jian Wushuang frowned and looked around him. He was currently in a corridor which was formed by the red giant stones, and red walls stood on both sides of him. Moreover, the red stone walls were strange as they even blocked off his soul power. Break! Jian Wushuang unleashed an unreasonable amount of strength with the intent to break the red stone walls. However, the hardness of the red stone walls had completely exceeded his expectations. A stroke with his power had only managed to leave a sword mark that was neither big nor small on the red stone walls. Moreover, the sword mark closed up again in a split second. On the peak of ancient Demon Mountain in the Black Palace. Swoosh! Swoosh! The old lady in a black robe and the chubby, middle-aged man appeared simultaneously. The old lady in a black robe looked extremely solemn, while the chubby, middle-aged man looked miserable. He was covered in blood and his aura was extremely weak. What happened? His Highness Mu Hong creased his eyebrows and asked, Your Highness, the experts that barged into Blood Demon Church this time should be coming for us. They have 3 real gods fighting against the people of Blood Demon Church on the surface, but they have one chaotic real god who came here, the chubby, middle-aged man said. Chaotic real god? His Highness Mu Hong said. Master? The old lady in a black robe looked at Lord Lung and said politely, There are 2 of them who barged into my formation. One of them is a chaotic real god, while another, if I'm not mistaken, should be the top genius from Lineage of Star who is extremely famous, Jian Wushuang. Lord Lung, who had been sitting down at ease, her body suddenly quivered when she heard Jian Wushuang's name. There was a glimpse of an unnoticeable expression in her eyes. Jian Wushuang? The 3rd place on Universe God ranking list. His Highness Mu Hong's face grew cold. Yes, it's him. Jian Wushuang is really monstrous. He is only a universe god, but even I had to put in some effort to deal with him. I can't do anything about him. His strength might already be able to compare favorably to a peak void real gods. The lady in a black robe nodded. Humph, how monstrous. If it wasn't because I happened to break through and became a real god at the time, when Wu Bei's cave came to the world, I couldn't have entered Wu Bei's cave. Otherwise, why would the white blaze fruits and white blaze fruit trees fall into his hands? His Highness Mu Hong sneered. The old lady in a black robe heard him and only smiled in silence but didn't say much. Number 7. What's the situation like? Lord Ling asked. Master, I trapped both the chaotic real god and Jian Wushuang using redstone prison temporarily. However, the chaotic real god is too strong. I'm afraid he will break my redstone prison forcefully in no time. The old lady in a black robe looked solemn. Redstone prison was her strongest trump card. Under normal circumstances, it should be sufficient to trap an ordinary chaotic real god. But the power of real god Long Qing, who was trapped in redstone prison then, definitely wasn't an ordinary chaotic real god. Master, before redstone prison breaks open from the chaotic real god, we'd better leave first. The old lady in a black robe said, "Your Highness, hurry up and leave too." The chubby, middle-aged man said anxiously. He was already severely injured by the chaotic real god, and he had barely any fighting power left. "What's the hurry?" His Highness Mu Hong said in a low voice. "I've heard about Jian Wushuang for more than once. I heard that he is the top genius standing at the peak of eternal chaotic world. I wanted to fight against him long ago. Now that I have the chance, how can I miss it?" "But—" The chubby, middle-aged man wanted to say something. "Shut up!" His Highness Mu Hong reprimanded him. Then he looked at Lord Lung with a faint smile. "Lung, wait for me here for a while. I'll be right back." Lord Lung nodded faintly. His Highness Mu Hong left the palace with the chubby, middle-aged man. "Number 7, Lord Lung commanded. "You follow them. Remember, you only have to deal with the chaotic real god. As for Jian Wushuang, let His Highness Mu Hong deal with him on his own." "Yes." The old lady in a black robe nodded, then she disappeared in the palace again. In the Black Palace, there's only Lord Lung sitting alone in silence. On Lord Lung's face, which was covered with a veil, there was a malicious smile. She rubbed her stomach involuntarily with her delicate hand. There was a consciousness in deep sleep. She had sealed off the consciousness long ago with all the tricks she had on hand. "Sister, your sweetheart is so stubborn. He really chased after you from Green Fire World to Eternal Chaotic World. In merely 10,000 years, he became so famous. He's really outstanding. No wonder you're so into him. It's a pity that his heart is with you. Otherwise, your younger sister, me, would be quite attracted to him." Lord Ling muttered to herself. Her voice was so ghostly and creepy. "Jian Wushuang, as you're here, let me take a good look at your capability." Hee. In the huge red stone prison that covered the vast universe, Jian Wushuang and real god Long Qing were trapped in the prison. They couldn't break it apart in a short period of time. Then His Highness Mu Hong, the chubby, middle-aged man, and the old lady in a black robe appeared in a corner of the red stone prison. "Your Highness Mu Hong, Jian Wushuang is at the end of this passageway. Just walk along the passageway ahead and you'll see him. I'll have to deal with a chaotic real god, so I'll not keep you company." The old lady in a black robe bowed and then plunged in the direction of real god Long Qing. In the passageway in red stone prison, His Highness Mu Hong stood side by side with the chubby, middle-aged man. "Your Highness, I fought with a chaotic real god earlier and got severely injured. Not even 10% of my power has recovered yet, and Jian Wushuang isn't weak. What if—" The chubby, middle-aged man had yet to finish what he wanted to say. "What do you mean by what if?" Your Highness Mu Hong glared at the chubby, middle-aged man. "Lung is waiting outside as she watches. You want to embarrass me before her?" The chubby, middle-aged man's face changed, but he never spoke again. "Humph, he's just a universe god. Even if he is a genius, just how strong he can be." His Highness Mu Hong had a scornful look. He was pampered since birth, and he had his father as his backer. He had always been riding roughshod over everything and never bothered with anyone, including those geniuses in Eternal Chaotic World. The most important thing was that he was extremely confident in his power. One should know that he had already broken through and become real god, and he had already comprehended one of the 9 heaven god doctrines, Darkness Doctrine. Although his comprehension towards Darkness Doctrine wasn't high and wasn't at the standard of passing the first level of Doctrine Palace, he possessed extremely aggressive real god armor and divine weapons because of his father. On top of that, he had cultivated some secret skills, and his fighting power had already reached the peak of a void real god. With such a fighting power, from his point of view, no matter how amazing a universe god was, he would be able to win against him. "Don't be in a hurry to fight with him directly. Let my 2 war puppets play with him first." His Highness Mu Hong smirked coldly. He waved, and 2 tall figures appeared before him. They were 2 war puppets of void god level. Under the guidance of His Highness Mu Hong, the 2 war puppets plunged ahead in the passageway. At one of the passages within the redstone prison, Jian Wushuang had an icy cold expression. As he held the Blood Mountain sword on his right hand, he walked forward slowly, and his eyes remained vigilant regarding his surroundings at all times. He had already attempted to break open the red stone prison moments ago. However, he discovered that he did not have the ability to do so, as he could not even break open the stone wall which was beside him. Without any choice, he could only follow the passage in front of him and continue walking slowly. Although this prison is sturdy, it was still created by an eternal real God. With real God Long Qing's abilities, he should be able to break out in a short while, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. At that moment, at the front of the passage, two big shadows appeared in front of him. Battle puppets? Jian Wushuang frowned slightly. Void real God-level battle puppets. The two battle puppets were each holding a saber on their hands. Their icy cold, unfeeling eyes had also locked onto Jian Wushuang firmly. In the next moment, the two big shadows moved at the same time. Boom! Boom! Two frightening power burst forth abruptly. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold, and he unleashed his martial art motion instantly. Back then, when he was traveling in Wu Bei's cave, his martial art motion had been recognized as the number one among the universe gods. Moreover, at that time, his comprehension of the space-time doctrine was only at the beginner's level. After leaving Wu Bei's cave, a total of 1,800 years had passed. During the 1,800 years, with the help of the real God Hall, his comprehension of the space-time doctrine had improved greatly. At that very moment, it had also achieved the standard necessary to clear the first level of the Doctrine Palace. Moreover, the secret skill-flowing light phantom was also controlled by the power of space-time. The higher the comprehension of space-time doctrine, the more frightening his martial art motion was. At that very moment, when Jian Wushuang had unleashed his martial art motion again, it was a lot stronger than back then when he had unleashed it in Wu Bei's cave. Swish! Swish! Among the 18 shadows, when the two of them were near the two battle puppets, both of them did an action mimicking a sword swing. The two battle puppets also took out their sabers instantly and swung them with their great power. At once, the swings became shrill saber light which struck Jian Wushuang's body. However, it was obvious that what they had struck was merely a phantom. As for Jian Wushuang, his real body unleashed a random stroke which was like an arc of light, and he struck the necks of the two battle puppets easily. Two heads were then sent flying immediately. Without their heads, the two battle puppets collapsed at once. Clap! Clap! Clapping sounds could be heard. When Jian Wushuang raised his head to take a look, he saw that His Highness Musong and the fat middle-aged were walking toward him slowly. As expected of the top genius who is able to rank third on the Universe God ranking list. These two demon god puppets of mine actually possessed the fighting capabilities of void real gods. However, they were destroyed by you instantly. His Highness Musong giggled. However, he was still a bit amazed. Oh! Jian Wushuang stared at the two of them, especially the fat middle-aged man. His expression could not help but change, but he heaved a sigh of relief after that. It's still all right. This eternal real God has been seriously injured by real God Long Qing just now. Hence, he should not be able to unleash much of his fighting capabilities. Jian Wushuang was still extremely fearful of the eternal real gods. As for His Highness Musong, Jian Wushuang could tell that he was only at the level of a void god. Hence, he was not too afraid. Jian Wushuang, today, I really wish to see exactly how strong a top genius like you, who is on the Universe God ranking list, is. His Highness Musong laughed coldly. Without saying many unnecessary words, a green sickle appeared in his hands. The edge of the green sickle was extremely small but sharp. Under the illumination of the red stones around the area, the green sickle emitted an icy cold dark red luster. Jian Wushuang held the Blood Mountain sword in his hands tightly. "Ha! Let's fight!" His Highness Musong laughed coldly, and with a movement of his feet, the green sickle changed into a green glittering light and proceeded to attack with lightning speed. Whoosh! 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 Many green saber lights seemed to descend at the same time, and they shrouded Jian Wushuang instantly. Jian Wushuang released the divine power in his hands, and also activated the secret skill of the Blood Feather Reincarnation armor completely. After that, the Blood Mountain sword attacked straight away. Clang! Even though it was only the first clash, Jian Wushuang's expression changed. What strength! He has probably achieved the peak of a void real god. There were both strong and weak void real gods. The weak ones were the very normal void real gods, and normally, the top 30 of the universe god ranking list could compete with them. As for the top 10 on the universe god ranking list, they could kill the void real gods. However, there were also void real gods who had comprehended a small bit of the power of Heaven Way. With that, their abilities were no longer normal. As for the top of the void real gods, normally their comprehension of the power of Heaven Way would allow them to clear the first level of the Doctrine Palace. One such example was the Fiery King, who was a peak void real god. However, for His Highness Musang, who was in front of him, although his comprehension of the power of Heaven Way was not very high, due to some secret skills as well as the treasures that he possessed, he could also unleash the fighting capabilities of a peak void real god. Haha! Jian Wushuang, why have you been on the defensive ever since we started fighting? Come on, show me your moves. Or could it be that you have been pushed back by me so much that you are unable to counterattack? His Highness Musang laughed loudly and swung the green sickle in his hands continuously. Every swing held a great amount of power and pushed Jian Wushuang back to the point that he had to retreat continuously. However, although Jian Wushuang was retreating continuously, his eyes remained icy cold and his expression did not show any fear. Although this person possesses the fighting capabilities of a peak void real god, he does not have much experience in close-quarters combat. Jian Wushuang's eyes squinted slightly. At the next moment, his body moved and he unleashed the secret skill-flowing light phantom as well as his unusual martial art motion at the same time. Jian Wushuang's ghost-like body avoided the saber lights that His Highness Musang unleashed easily, and he appeared in front of His Highness Musang. 10,000 shadows. Whoosh! 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 A huge number of sword shadows appeared at the same time. Under the influence of Jian Wushuang's power of spacetime, every sword shadow was unbelievably fast. What? His Highness Musang's expression changed slightly, and he swung his green sickle immediately to block. His body was also forced to retreat. Jian Wushuang stood in his position and a small bit of disdain flashed past his eyes. Seems like I have overestimated him. Although he indeed has the fighting capabilities of a peak void real god, his close-quarter combat abilities are too weak. While he has the abilities, he is unable to unleash them completely. Jian Wushuang sneered. I shall stop wasting my time on him and kill him directly. Jian Wushuang glowed with murderous intent. In a split second, an enormous amount of soul power burst forth and a giant golden divine ape covered his body. His divine power and soul power had combined beautifully. With that, Jian Wushuang's abilities had achieved their peak. Next, Jian Wushuang was about to launch his attack. However, all of a sudden, an unusual change occurred. Boom! Jian Wushuang felt as if he had been struck by a streak of lightning from a clear sky. His body paused at his position and his heart was beating madly. This is... Of all times, why must it be now? No, no! Jian Wushuang roared within his mind and his expression also became unusually ugly. He had never expected this to happen. At the critical moment where he was in the red stone prison which was very close to Wuxia, his inverse cultivation test for the third heaven actually descended without any warning. Inverse cultivation test. It was the biggest test that Jian Wushuang had to pass as an inverse cultivator. He had experienced 2 inverse cultivation tests previously and passed them in extreme danger. Among the 2 inverse cultivation tests, when the first inverse cultivation test had descended, there were signs 120 years before that had allowed him to prepare for 120 years. For the second inverse cultivation test, the signs had come 10 years before the test. He at least got to prepare for 10 years. But then, the third inverse cultivation test, there wasn't any sign, nor did it give any time for Jian Wushuang to prepare himself. It didn't even worry about what kind of situation Jian Wushuang was in and descended directly. It suddenly descended as he was fighting against His Highness Mu Hong. Why now? Why didn't even give me any time to prepare? I don't need much. One day, it'd be great even if it was only 2 hours. Jian Wushuang roared from the bottom of his heart. Wuxia was within a stone's throw away from him. He only needed a little bit of time and he'd be able to see Lung Rushua. He then would figure a way to suppress her. But, out of all moments, the third inverse cultivation test had descended at this critical time. However, the inverse cultivation test was different from the previous two. There weren't any clouds. From the outside, Jian Wushuang didn't see changes, but only he knew that he was in the process of going through the test. Jian Wushuang die. His Highness Mu Hong's eyes were cold with a tinge of murderous intention. He raised the green sickle high. Wow! A huge blade light appeared. Then the air burst from the pressure and became a luxurious blade river. Jian Wushuang's face dimmed as he saw the luxurious blade river flowing towards him. Blood Mountain's sword in his hand immediately became a bolt of crimson lightning and suddenly swept out. Just as the sword light swept out, Jian Wushuang's pupils contracted. My divine power is weakening? There was a loud bang and Jian Wushuang retreated from the impact. Ha ha! His Highness Mu Hong laughed as he wielded his sickle and charged towards Jian Wushuang ferociously. The blade lights swung out from his hand. He obviously wanted to crush Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang immediately wielded his sword to block with all his strength. However, during the process, Jian Wushuang could clearly feel that his divine power was constantly weakening. Not only in terms of divine power, it included his soul power, his comprehension towards reincarnation doctrine, space-time doctrine, and even sword principle that he had created, but they were also all weakening tremendously. How could it be? Jian Wushuang was shocked and angry. If he were to be at his tip-top condition, when he collaborates his divine power with soul power to give full play to his power, he could totally defeat His Highness Mu Hong easily. He could even kill him. But then, his power was deteriorating at a terrifying speed. From fighting forcefully with His Highness Mu Hong, to barely evenly matching, to being at a disadvantage, it only took an instant. Then Jian Wushuang was almost losing. Regardless of speed or strength, he was far behind His Highness Mu Hong. Looking at His Highness wielding his sickle again and again, even though Jian Wushuang had blocked the blade light, Jian Wushuang was retreating at every collision due to the fierce impact. Crushing him. It was almost torture. The genius in the top 10 on Universe God ranking list, your ability is just like this? Weak. Too weak. Jian Wushuang. I overestimated your power. His Highness Mu Hong was holding his green sickle with one hand as he overlooked Jian Wushuang coldly. There was disdain in his eyes. I previously wondered just how amazing a top genius in Universe God ranking list could be. But from what I see now, you're only rubbish. Your kind is not worth my attention. Die! His Highness Mu Hong let out a green glow and the murderous intention suddenly surfaced from his body. Jian Wushuang's face changed. Just then, Hong! A terrifying loud roar was suddenly heard from a corner of Red Stone Prison. Then, the originally sturdy red stone prison that even Jian Wushuang at his peak could damage started trembling. The surrounding red stone walls started cracking. In a short while, walala, the red stone prison collapsed. Humph! Your prison is pretty impressive, but it's not enough to trap me, Long Qing. A cold harumph suddenly exploded in the universe. Then, they immediately saw a fierce divine power explode in a corner of the void and fly in all directions. The old lady in a black robe who was dealing with real God Long Qing with her all looked terrified. At the moment when real God Long Qing broke Red Stone Prison apart. Hurry up and run! The old lady in a black robe let out a low roar and her figure instantly retreated. Your Highness, let's hurry up and leave. The chubby, middle-aged man appeared before His Highness Mu Hong. But Jian Wushuang. His Highness Mu Hong glanced at Jian Wushuang. He wanted to kill Jian Wushuang before he left. Hurry up and run. Otherwise, we won't escape in time. The chubby, middle-aged man immediately grabbed His Highness Mu Hong by his hand. Then, the two of them instantly fled. Rumble. A terrifying divine power pressed from all directions and the ruins of the collapsed red stone prison were crushed into pieces. Then, there was a figure that soared up into the sky. It was real God Long Qing and he was raging with imposing aura. Looking at the few people fleeing hastily in the void, he wanted to chase, but he suddenly noticed Jian Wushuang's existence. Jian Wushuang, you are... Real God Long Qing looked at Jian Wushuang with his eyebrows tightly knitted. He could tell that Jian Wushuang was in very bad condition. Jian Wushuang's divine power and aura were already weakened to an extreme low, and it was constantly weakening still. Jian Wushuang felt that all his strength was vanishing. He sat on the ground with his body slightly shivering. He couldn't move an inch. But suddenly, Jian Wushuang lifted his head and roared, "Real God Long Qing, don't bother about me. Hurry. Hurry up and chase after them. Remember, you must catch the lady in Ancient Demon Mountain alive. Catch her alive." Real God Long Qing creased his eyebrows and nodded heavily. Then, just as Real God Long Qing plunged out and almost stepped foot on Ancient Demon Mountain, Virum, a boundless black fog suddenly soared up from Ancient Demon Mountain, just like a black ocean. It instantly swept across heaven and earth and covered the entire universe. Wow! 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 From the black ocean, an enormous amount of black fog formed into creepy black waves and lapped at Real God Long Qing from all directions. Although Real God Long Qing was a chaotic real god, he seemed to be in a fix from the attack of the creepy black waves. What the hell is this? Real God Long Qing's gaze turned cold, and he constantly stabbed with his spear as he let out an imposing power to break the black waves. However, the moment it broke, more black waves ravaged over. Damn it! Real God Long Qing was extremely furious. With a stab of his long spear abruptly, the strong fighting capabilities of a chaotic real god burst forth, and it was as if even the heavens could be pierced. As for the vast Black Sea, 10% of it was annihilated by that stab instantly. However, it returned to normal quickly, and the great black waves continued to head toward him madly like before. Without question, the Black Sea was even more troublesome than the Redstone prison had been previously. At that very moment, at the center of the Black Sea, which was also the peak of the Ancient Demon Mountain, a white-clothed woman's body appeared slowly. Her white clothes were whiter than snow, and her face was covered with a veil. She looked just like a celestial beauty from a painting, and she was walking out slowly. Even though her looks could not be seen clearly, the special coldness and elegance of her were sufficient to make everything in the world be visibly moved. As for Jian Wushuang, who was sitting on the ground, he raised his head fiercely. His sharp eyes then locked on to the white-clothed woman at once. Lang Ruxue. Even Jian Wushuang's voice was trembling. However, he still felt delighted and furious. He was delighted as he had finally found his wife after being separated for so many years. He was furious as his wife's body was being controlled by Lang Ruxue at that very moment. As Jian Wushuang stared at the white-clothed woman, the white-clothed woman was also examining him closely. Jian Wushuang, long time no see. The white-clothed woman Lang Zuanju, Lang Rushue's voice could be heard. After so many years, you still didn't give up. You are really persistent. I have said before, even if you walk to the end of the world, I will still be able to find you, Jian Wushuang said coldly. Yes, you have found me. However, what can you do even though you have found me? Lang Zuanju sneered. Do you have the ability to suppress me? Look at your miserable state now. If not for me being worried about some agreements that I made with her back then, and the fact that she might create some trouble for me in the future if I didn't keep my promise, I would actually act now and kill you straight away. The she, who Lang Zuanju mentioned, was naturally referring to the consciousness of Lang Rushuang, who had been sealed by her. Upon hearing Lang Zuanju's words, Jian Wushuang was shocked, and he could not help but clench both his fists tightly. He then spoke with a low voice. I might not be able to do anything against you today. However, I will still repeat myself. Even if you walk to the end of the world, no matter how long it takes, 1,000,000 years or even 10 million years, as long as I, Jian Wushuang, am not dead, I will do my utmost best to find and suppress you. There will surely come a day where I help her to take back what belongs to her. Haha, is that so? Lang Zuanju laughed evilly, and her eyes squinted slightly. Very good. I'll be waiting. Let's go. Lang Zuanju turned her body and left with His Highness Musong and the rest of the people. Damn it! As for Jian Wushuang, he raised his head and stared at the back view of Lang Zuanju closely as she left. His heart was quivering and roaring madly to release all his dissatisfaction. He had finally found Lung Ruxue. Lung Ruxue was just standing in front of him. She was extremely close to him. However, he could not act to suppress Lung Ruxue and rescue his wife. He could only look on as Lung Ruxue left. Although she was so close, she was still out of reach. At that very moment, Jian Wushuang had already neglected the fact that he was still in the midst of the inverse cultivation test for the third heaven. He also didn't know what kind of unbelievable change was occurring inside his own body. Buzz. As Lung Zuinju and her people disappeared from Jian Wushuang and real god Long Qing's line of vision, the Black Sea which had spread all over the universe started to dissipate slowly. Real god Long Qing was finally freed from the Black Sea. His eyes were filled with seriousness as he looked in the direction that Lung Zuinju left in. Who exactly was that woman just now? At the very moment, real god Long Qing felt very uneasy. Even though her realm is not high and she seems to have not even reached the level of an eternal real god, the technique that she used just now caused even me to be fearful. Moreover, what exactly is the move that she used? Although he had stayed in the Black Sea for quite a while, he was still unable to tell how the Black Sea was formed. Although it looked like a realm treasure, that was not it. It also didn't look like a secret skill that was executed by relying on her divine power. Instead, it was another special kind of power. And Lung Zuinju possessed such a power. Jian Wushuang wants me to suppress her? If it were close-quarters combat, even if it were me, I couldn't guarantee that I could defeat her. Hence, it is absolutely impossible to capture her alive. Real god Long Qing shook his head. After that, he turned his body and headed in the direction of Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang. Real god Long Qing had appeared in front of Jian Wushuang, and he was about to talk to him. What is it? All of a sudden, real god Long Qing became stunned. As he stared at Jian Wushuang closely, his face was filled with astonishment and disbelief. How did you become like this? Inside the Blood Demon Church. At that very moment, the Blood Demon Church was too tragic to look at. 3 real gods, of which 2 were eternal real gods, charged in and unleashed a killing spree wantonly. Although the real gods of the Blood Demon Church had given their all to repel them, they could not do anything as the gap between their abilities was too big. For example, the Blood Demon Church Master had only just become an eternal real god. As for real god Bai Ying and real god Yin Tuo, they were at a peak level when compared to the other eternal real gods. Hence, among the both of them, either one of them could suppress the Blood Demon Church Master easily. In addition, there was still the Fiery King who was a void real god who stood at the top. Therefore, he crushed the higher-ups of the Blood Demon Church directly. Even the Blood Demon Church Master escaped tragically straight away. As for the 3 void real gods in the Blood Demon Church, 2 of them were killed on the spot while the other one escaped with serious injuries. As for the universe gods who were the higher-ups of the Blood Demon Church, Fiery King and the rest of the party did not let them off either. As such, many of them were killed. In any case, the Blood Demon Church was finished. As for the universe god disciples within the church, all of them had already escaped outside the sect. In the very moment, real god Bai Ying, real god Yin Tuo and the Fiery King were heading toward the direction of the ancient demon mountain. While traveling, the 3 of them were chatting with one another as well. Haha! In the beginning, the Blood Demon Church Master was still quite arrogant. After knowing that we have a lineup of 2 eternal real gods and a void real god, he still bragged that he would make us stay in the Blood Demon Church forever. I really wonder where he got his courage from. At the start, I still thought that the Blood Demon Church had some sort of trump card. In the end, they had nothing but the Blood Demon Church Master boasting outrageously. However, it's a pity. In the end, we still allowed the Blood Demon Church Master to escape. The 3 of them felt that it was a pity. The Blood Demon Church Master had done all kinds of evil. Hence, when they had acted this time round, they had planned to completely eliminate the Blood Demon Church. However, in the end, they did not manage to do what they had wanted. However, in actual fact, they didn't know that the Blood Demon Church Master was not bragging previously. He had really wanted to get the 3 of them to stay forever. The basis was that His Highness Musong and Lung Zuinju were willing to help him. However, in the end, His Highness Musong and Lung Zuanju had never paid any attention to him. As such, he had escaped as he could not do anything. I wonder how real God Longqing and Jian Wushuang are doing. With real God Longqing, a chaotic real god, going there personally, there will definitely be no problem. While chatting with one another, the three of them arrived at the place where Jian Wushuang and real God Longqing were in the blink of an eye. Real God Longqing, real God Baiying, real God Yin Tuo and Fiery King lowered themselves. Why are only you here? Where's Jian Wushuang? Fiery King was the first who asked. Jian Wushuang, he's there. Real God Longqing beckoned to the ground below. The three of them then noticed the figure on the ground below. From that one glance, real God Baiying, real God Yin Tuo and Fiery King were shocked. He's Jian Wushuang? Real God Baiying was shocked. How is it possible? From his aura, it is really him. Real God Yin Tuo exclaimed in surprise, while Fiery King's face grew dim. The three of them could see the figure on the ground below, but the figure had gray hair, a hoary look, and his body was like a withered tree. It was just like an elderly who had reached old age. On top of that, the gray-haired elderly had no fluctuation of divine power at all. He was just like a common person, a total commoner. The gray-haired common elder was one of the members widely recognized in Eternal Chaotic World, Jian Wushuang. Swoosh! Fiery King was the first to plunge down and appear before the gray-haired elderly. It was as though he had felt Fiery King's arrival. The gray-haired elderly lifted his head slightly and revealed a face that looked like Jian Wushuang's but obviously a few times older. The face was hoary and he could barely force a smile at Fiery King. Jian Wushuang, it's really you? Fiery King's eyes were wide open. Even though there was a drastic change in Jian Wushuang's appearance, the fluctuation of divine power vanished. The aura was extremely weak. The nature of the weak aura was really one that he was familiar with. Fiery King was definite that the gray-haired elderly was really Jian Wushuang. Why did you become like this? Fiery King's face grew grave and his voice was low. At the same time, he glanced at real God Longqing. Real God Longqing, weren't you with Jian Wushuang the whole time? Why did you let him turn into such a condition? Fiery King was hot-tempered and Jian Wushuang did good grace to him. Looking at Jian Wushuang's condition, he didn't worry about if real God Longqing was a chaotic real god, but reprimanded him. However, real God Longqing only creased his eyebrows slightly. Brother Fiery King, Jian Wushuang, who had become a gray-haired elderly, spoke. His voice was hoarse and weak. This has nothing to do with real God Longqing. He did his best. The reason why I became like this is due to my personal body condition. Personal body condition? Fiery King squinted his eyes. Let's forget about this. We barged into Blood Demon Church and made a huge scene. We may have already startled real God Zhogong. Hence, it's best we leave here first, Jian Wushuang said. All right, Fiery King answered. Real God Longqing, real God Baiying and real God Yin Tuo nodded heavily in agreement. Brother Fiery King, please lend me a hand. Jian Wushuang suddenly extended his hand. His hand was hoary too and his skin was so dry that it cracked. I have no divine power at all. I can't even travel. I can only ask Brother Fiery King to give me a ride. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Fiery King felt a tug at his heartstrings, and his gaze at Jian Wushuang was filled with sympathy. Very soon, the five of them departed. However, Jian Wushuang was on Fiery King's back. On the way, Jian Wushuang never spoke. As for Fiery King, real God Longqing and the rest were in silence. No one spoke. However, not long after they had traveled from Blood Demon Church, Virum, a ferocious power suddenly descended. Then, there was immediately a 3-meter-tall figure. A giant-like elderly in a purple robe appeared in the void from nowhere. Looking at the elderly in a purple robe, the few of them who were originally traveling forward suddenly stopped as their eyes contracted in shock. Greetings to Mr. Zhogong from Longqing. Real God Longqing bowed slightly before the elderly in a purple robe. It's real God Zhogong. We're in trouble. Real God Baiying, real God Yin Tuo and Fiery King were terrified. Jian Wushuang, who was on Fiery King's back, couldn't help but lift his head to steal a glance at the elderly in a purple robe. Real God Zhogong was the king of Zhogong Holy Kingdom. At the same time, lineage of Star was fearful of him. They didn't dare to send any real gods from their sect to Zhogong Holy King. He was a superb expert on the 5th place on Real God ranking list. Although Real God Longqing was a chaotic real god, compared to Real God Zhogong he was far behind. When they met, just like then, Real God Longqing had to refer to Real God Zhogong as Mr. Real God Longqing. The extermination of Blood Demon Church is your doing? Real God Zhogong stood there with his cold voice and asked in a calm manner. But every word he uttered hammered the few of their hearts brutally. They were all shivering in fear. Such terrifying power. Fiery King clenched his teeth and complimented. Mr. Zhogong, yes, it is our doing. Real God Longqing replied carefully. Humph, Blood Demon Church is one of the forces under the control of Holy Kingdom Zhogong. Before you took action against it, you didn't even inform me. Wasn't that disrespectful to me? Real God Zhogong harumphed coldly, and there was anger in his eyes. This, Real God Longqing's face grew grave. He thought for a while and took out a Qian Kung ring. I am really not considerate enough regarding what happened today. There are 20 doctrine gems in this Qian Kuan ring. Consider this an apology. Only 20? Real God Zhogong's gaze was cold. 200 doctrine gems and I'll let the few of you off. Otherwise, none of you will be leaving. 200. Real God Longqing stunned. Real God Bai Ying and Real God In Tuo stunned. Doctrine gem was an extremely precious treasure to real gods as it was very useful. Any ordinary eternal real god would only have 10 doctrine gems at most. 200 doctrine gems was also a huge figure to Real God Longqing, who was a chaotic real god. Fine, I'll give them to you. Real God Longqing threw another Qian Kuan ring out directly. Although 200 doctrine gem wasn't a small amount, Real God Longqing accepted Hall Master Yuan's invitation and Hall Master Yuan offered him a higher price than that. After Real God Zhogong took the Qian Kuan ring, he glanced and nodded. You can leave now. Fiery King and the rest let out a breath of relief and immediately prepared to leave. But then, Real God Zhogong suddenly fixed his gaze on Jian Wushuang. Who is this person that didn't even have any fluctuation of divine power? Jian Wushuang's heart skipped a beat. He knew clearly that if Real God Zhogong were to find out his real identity, he couldn't even think about leaving Holy Kingdom Zhogong alive. Fiery King immediately replied, Mister, this is my relative. Many years ago he got caught by Blood Demon Church and was tortured. His training was in vain entirely and he turned into a commoner. I barged into Blood Demon Church today to take revenge and to rescue him. Is that so? Real God Zhogong raised his eyebrows but didn't suspect. Let's go. Fiery King and the rest quickly brought Jian Wushuang with them and left. Real God Longqing, Real God Bai Ying, Real God In Tuo and the Fiery King were traveling while carrying Jian Wushuang with them. After some time, they finally left the Zhogong Holy Kingdom's territory. In the Black Void, we have finally come out. Real God Longqing and the rest of them heaved a sigh of relief. The Zhogong Holy Kingdom had Real God Zhogong. As soon as he discovered Jian Wushuang's real identity, even the few of them could not get away scot-free. That Real God Longqing is really very unreasonable. He actually asked for 200 doctrine gems. Yes, in Tuo, you and I are both unable to fork out 200 doctrine gems. Only Real God Longqing is able to do it. Real God Bai Ying and Real God In Tuo side. Real God Zhogong is known for being unreasonable. Real God Longqing said, After all, the Blood Demon Church is a big powerhouse within the Holy Kingdom that he controls. Without getting a green light from him, we destroyed it directly. Moreover, it's already not too bad that he didn't kill all of us straight away. As for the 200 doctrine gems, it's nothing. After sighing for some time, Real God Longqing looked toward Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, although the mission this time around could not be completed and that you became like this as well, the three of us had done our best. I know. Jian Wushuang nodded his head slightly. Thank you, and I'm sorry for troubling the three of you. After I get back, I will explain to Hall Master Yuan clearly. As for the rewards that Hall Master Yuan have promised previously, they will definitely be given in full. Thank you very much. Real God Long Qing thanked Jian Wushuang. After that, he left with Real God Bai Ying and Real God Yin Tua. They only came when they were hired. Since they had already finished what they were supposed to do, they would naturally leave. In the void, only the Fiery King and Jian Wushuang remained. Jian Wushuang, how did you become like this? The Fiery King could not help but ask. In the beginning, he had thought that Jian Wushuang became his current state as he had been poisoned by a potent poison. However, a great amount of time had passed since traveling from the Blood Demon Church to their current location. Even after that, Jian Wushuang still did not get any better. Hence, the Fiery King was anxious. I'm sorry, Big Brother Fiery King. This matter concerns a few secrets of mine and it is inconvenient for me to tell you. You only need to send me back to the lineage of Star. At that time, Hall Master Yuan and the rest of the people will help me to resolve this matter. Jian Wushuang said apologetically. All right. The Fiery King nodded his head and he did not mind. After all, everyone has secrets. Moreover, some secrets were extremely crazy. Hence, he would naturally not get to the bottom of Jian Wushuang's secrets. The Fiery King took out an airship from the outside world. After that, he began his journey to send Jian Wushuang back to the lineage of Star from the Zhougong Holy Kingdom. He took tens of years to return to the lineage of Star. However, even though tens of years had passed, Jian Wushuang still did not get any better. At the lineage of Star, inside a cave that was built with special gems. As Hall Master Yuan and Lei Chao looked in front of them at the white-haired Jian Wushuang who looked like an old man, their eyes squinted slightly. If not for the special life aura of Jian Wushuang, based on looks alone, they would not expect the person in front of them to actually be Jian Wushuang. Fiery King, thank you for sending Jian Wushuang back this time around. I will make sure that Jian Wushuang remembers this favor, Hall Master Yuan said. Jian Wushuang and I belong to the same lineage. Moreover, he has rescued me from the Sky Sword prison and I am extremely grateful to him for this. Hence, I ought to send him back and there's nothing with regards to owing or returning favors. Now, the most important thing is his current state. I hope that your lineage of Star is able to think of a way to get him to recover quickly, the Fiery King said. Don't worry. You can leave this matter to the lineage of Star, Hall Master Yuan said. Understood. The Fiery King nodded his head, took a look at Jian Wushuang seriously and left soon after. Inside the cave, only Hall Master Yuan, Lei Chao and Jian Wushuang were left. Jian Wushuang, for you to be in this state, could it be? Hall Master Yuan frowned and stared at Jian Wushuang. The inverse cultivation test for the third heaven. Jian Wushuang raised his head and said, I was right. Hall Master Yuan and Lei Chao looked at each other. They knew that since Jian Wushuang's current state was not caused by other people, the only other possibility was the inverse cultivation test. What's wrong with your inverse cultivation test this time around? Hall Master Yuan questioned. I am not sure either. Jian Wushuang shook his head. Previously, after I came out of Wu Bei's cave, my abilities were already very close to their peak. Under normal circumstances, when my abilities reached such a level, the inverse cultivation test for the third heaven should have descended. Hence, I intentionally stayed within the lineage of Star to wait for the arrival of the inverse cultivation test. After waiting for a total of 1,800 years, which caused my abilities in every area to reach its peak, the inverse cultivation test did not show any signs of descending at all. However, this time around, after I received the news from the Vientiane Tower, I set off to the Zhougong Holy Kingdom to capture Lang Zuanju alive. At the start, it was still quite smooth. However, at the most critical moment where I was in an intense battle with someone, the inverse cultivation test for the third heaven descended without any warning. It descended abruptly? Hall Master Yuan was stunned. There were actually no warnings at all? Lei Chao was also shocked. For the God's test of a normal universe god, there would be some warnings given when it was about to descend so that the universe god could catch the warning and know when the God's test would descend clearly. This would then allow them to have sufficient time to make preparations. This was what had happened to many cultivators. As for inverse cultivators, although they were different from the rest during the previous 2 inverse cultivation tests, they had also given Jian Wushuang ample time to prepare. However, this time, which was the 3rd time, there were no warnings. Hence, there was no time to make any preparations. Back then, I was stunned as well. After all, I was in a close-quarters fight with a void real god. As soon as the inverse cultivation test descended, my divine power started to weaken speedily. Jian Wushuang's old face turned grave. It's not only my divine power, even my soul power, my comprehension toward the heaven way, as well as all the secret skills that I learnt, all began to weaken. Now, not even the slightest bit of my divine power and soul power remain. This is the same for my comprehension toward the heaven way. Hence, it can be said that the current me has been reduced to a normal person. During the journey back here, I tried to gather my divine power and also comprehend the heaven way. However, there was no effect at all. Furthermore, this inverse cultivation test has also caused my body to change. My body has become like a normal person's and my hair has turned white naturally. With that, I became lifeless, which is my current state now. I also had an impression that I would live every day with no thought of tomorrow. Live every day with no thought of tomorrow? Hall Master Yuan and Lei Chao became stupefied. Jian Wushuang was originally an extremely powerful and an exceptional genius who could compete against a peak void real god. However, in the blink of an eye, he had been reduced to a normal old man who had no power at all and could only live day to day with no thought of tomorrow. This was the inverse cultivation test of the 3rd heaven? Jian Wushuang, have you already passed inverse cultivation test, or are you still in the process of the test? Hall Master Yuan creased his eyebrows as he asked. Should be still in the process of the test, Jian Wushuang replied. And I can feel that my 3rd inverse cultivation test will be much longer than the 2 previous inverse cultivation tests. In other words, my current state will remain for quite some time. How much longer? Hall Master Yuan asked. I don't know. Jian Wushuang shook his head. He knew that he was passing through the test and the test would take very long, but he couldn't determine just how long exactly it would last for. Such a strange test. I have never heard about it before. This is troublesome, Hall Master Yuan said in a deep voice. Really troublesome. Even with Jian Wushuang's mental state, he could feel a faint helplessness. One should know that ever since he started cultivation, he had only relied on his own power. With his power, he was confident. Even if he were to run into strong enemies, he would figure out a way to grow in an unfavorable environment. But then, his power was non-existent. Regardless, as your inverse cultivation test has descended, everything that is meant to happen is going to happen. Plus, I can only rely on myself to go through this inverse cultivation test. No one else can help me with it. I will endure everything on my own. Very soon, Jian Wushuang had left the cave dwelling and walked towards his sword star. As for Hall Master Yuan and Lei Chao, they went to search for ancient books to see if they could find any solution. In Lineage of Star, among the rolling palaces, Jian Wushuang, who was hoary-looking with gray hair, was slowly walking forward. His footsteps were very slow. After all, not only did he become a commoner, he became a gray-haired elderly. He didn't possess any power. To him, every step that he took was difficult too. On the way, he naturally ran into many disciples of Lineage of Star. When the disciples of Lineage of Star saw Jian Wushuang, they were shocked. Who is this person? Who would he carry the token of Disciples of Star Palace on him? Disciples of Star Palace? Impossible. I've never seen him. Plus, this person didn't seem to have any fluctuations of divine power. Commoner? Really? At first, the disciples didn't even recognize Jian Wushuang, but were only suspicious about why Jian Wushuang was carrying the token of Disciples of Star Palace. But very soon, this person, he looks like Senior Wushuang. What nonsense are you talking about? Senior Wushuang is such an amazing genius. How could he be related to this old man that doesn't even have any fluctuations of divine power? But his life aura is exactly the same as Senior Wushuang's. I've seen Senior Wushuang before. That's why I'm familiar with Senior Wushuang's life aura. It's really Senior Wushuang's life aura? A person's facial features and body could change, but his life aura would never change. The disciples saw Jian Wushuang but couldn't recognize him. Whoever had seen him before could recognize his life aura though. Senior Wushuang, how come he changed like that? This is clearly an old man who is dying. How could it be the Senior Wushuang I adore? I don't believe this. I won't believe this. Impossible. Senior Wushuang is so amazing. It's impossible that he would change like this. Many disciples roared angrily and were not willing to believe what they saw. They followed Jian Wushuang. When they saw Jian Wushuang walk toward Swordstar and Xiaoyu, who was the leader among the maidservants in Swordstar, escort and help him personally to get into Swordstar, the disciples of Lineage of Star finally believed it. The old man who looked like he was going to die at any time was Jian Wushuang. On that day itself, Hall Master Yuan announced personally that when Jian Wushuang was wandering outside, someone had plotted against him and he had gotten poisoned. Hence, he had lost all his power and he couldn't recover in a short period of time. The moment the announcement was made, the entire Lineage of Star shook and everyone was bubbling over. On Sword Star, Jian Wushuang sat down on a chair slowly. Xiaoyu and the other maidservants stood there politely and they obviously looked concerned. Especially Xiaoyu. Mister, what has happened to you? Xiaoyu asked anxiously. Don't worry, I'm okay. I'll recover in no time. As for the rumors outside, don't worry about it, Jian Wushuang said. Although Jian Wushuang said so, Xiaoyu was still very worried. Jian Wushuang didn't say much but came to the secret room where he cultivated in seclusion on Sword Start. He sat down in the secret room, but his face looked solemn. Although he had behaved at ease before Hall Master Yuan, Xiaoyu and the others, in actual fact, he was even more worried than anyone else. I cultivated over the years, went through so much training, fought life and death battles, in exchange for my power. It vanished just like that. And, of all times, it happens to be when I got to see Lung Ruxue and when I desired power the most. It just suddenly descended. This inverse cultivation test, what is going on? Jian Wushuang roared in the bottom of his head and his hoary face grew red. Jian Wushuang, don't get too emotional. You must steady your mind. King of Venomous Worm's voice suddenly rang in Jian Wushuang's head. Don't forget about real god Wu Bei in Wu Bei's cave. Ha! Jian Wushuang looked surprised. Real god Wu Bei. Back when Jian Wushuang had asked real god Wu Bei about the third inverse cultivation test, real god Wu Bei had never said clearly, but he did mention that his drastic change of disposition was due to his experience of his third inverse cultivation test. The other almighties referred to him as a madman. The third inverse cultivation test that real god Wu Bei had experienced should be the same as the one he was in. Real god Wu Bei could become an inverse cultivator of real god level, and his power could be compared favorably with an almighty's. He naturally was an impressive figure. However, even he had a drastic change in disposition after he passed through the third inverse cultivation test. While you are in the midst of the test, if you were to act recklessly, you might turn out like real god Wu Bei. Plus, this is a really decent situation. Don't forget, the third inverse cultivation is your biggest test. This test is definitely much more strict than the others. King of Venomous Worms roared. Jian Wushuang felt his chest tighten. He kept quiet for a while and finally let out a breath of relief. I misbehaved. Jian Wushuang calmed down. Anyone who experiences what you're encountering would misbehave, or even go mad. It's normal, but you have to steady your mind. Don't get flustered. Otherwise, you might be doomed forever. King of Venomous Worms exhorted. I know. Jian Wushuang nodded faintly. He understood it well. Oh yeah. King of Venomous Worms, since I became like this, what effect does it have on you as my parasitic beast?